And we are live. What's going on, people?
Yo, yo, yo.
Already got some folks in the building. You know what I'm saying? I see we got my man. Now, look, I spoke to my man, MJ Jackson.
Uh-huh. Oh, we got a few people in there. All right.
Yep. MJ was not playing. This man's like the first dude in the chat. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
I see we got Sister Cherry in the building.
Yes.
Beatrice Wells in the building.
Yeah.
It's my first time doing this, so I'm trying to see how I can. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Well, Tyler Lott, he said peace. I didn't mean to show that, but I'm trying to figure out how to get it. Okay, there we go. Oh, man.
All right.
I haven't figured out how to scroll through, you know what I'm saying? So, whoever I missed, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to you as well. What's up, Nate? Yeah, I did cut out for a second. I don't know what that's about. I should be good, though. I should be good. I got it hooked up to the Ethernet rather than my Wi-Fi. So, for the most part, we should be all right. But yeah, man, y'all know what we here for, man. Y'all know what it is. We've been advertising it, kind of pushing it a little bit this week. Everybody knows that the debate, I'm calling it the great debate, between Dr. Vince Bantu and Brother Jabari went down a couple weeks ago. And there's just been so much, fallout from it, and just, in a good way. You know what I'm saying, opportunities to, mostly in a good way.
Right.
Opportunities to, really dig deep, man, and, get the gospel out, you know what I'm saying, and really shed some light on some misconceptions. And, again, Dr. Vince Bantu did a phenomenal job. Shout out to him. Definitely shout out to Eric Mason, Chris Broussard, who put the event on. And, definitely shout out to Jabari as well. With that said, I got my man, the BK Apologist.
Yeah, what's good, party people? It's the BK Apologist coming to you live and direct from Brooklyn, the Kings County, as we call it around here. So what's good?
Okay. The Kings County.
That's right.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm 2 up, 2 down, man. 2 up, 2 down. That's what we got going on here. Yeah. Now, first of all, before I get started, man, you posted a list the other day, the top worst rappers. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
And you had at number 1 Magoo, who's from Virginia, and I took great offense at that. But we gonna let that slide. We got other business.
Good. Hold the L. You agree with me? Hold the L. That's it.
We're not even gonna get into that tonight, man. We're not even gonna get into that tonight. I got my energy drink ready to roll. So really, what we're gonna be doing, man, we're gonna hop right into it. Okay. Tonight we're going to so far the only round that's been released is round 1. So tonight we're going to be going through Jabari's section point by point. We'll be playing about roughly maybe 5-minute clips. I mean, of course, Alfredo, you can stop me in the middle. You know what I'm saying? If something comes up that you just want to speak on, but we're going to play, like 5-minute clips, roughly speaking. And then we're just going to be, kind of running through some thoughts that we had, and, just try to shed some light on some things, man. So you ready to get going?
Yeah, let's rock. Let's go.
Cool, man. Cool. Now, I do want to say first off that each of the presentations were 20 minutes apiece, and then they would go into the rebuttal rounds. In Jabari's first segment, I cut off like maybe about the first like 3 or 4 minutes because it's just like greetings and stuff. But I do want to say just kind of capture what he was saying there, and I think I kind of captured it a little bit when I play it. But he started off very gracious. I loved his tone. I love the fact that he came to the table, wanting to dialogue, and it wasn't like he explicitly said, this is not about like banging on the church. I'm saying, and all that kind of stuff. I'm saying, so I do want to, even though I cut that part out for the sake of time, because mostly, like I said, greetings. I do want to give people that to kind of they can see where he was coming from. So let me go ahead and cue up this video, and yeah, man, that's me and Alfredo, man. This a little stroll down memory lane for us here, brother.
Yes,
bring back some memories, man. So
yes,
this is my first time trying to do this. So let me see if I can get this right. Okay. Oh, look at that. I think okay.
All right.
Y'all see that? Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and play this first clip.
You gotta make it a little bigger though, right?
Yeah.
Make sure the levels is good.
Yeah, I'm gonna dang. All right, hold up. Let me turn this up. And I'll rewind it back.
It's a process, people. It's a process. We're learning how to use this.
Yeah.
Please bear with us.
I don't know how to stop it.
Wow, that's not good.
All right, hold up. Is it still sharing? All right, hold on. Okay, let's try this again. Y'all still see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Keep telling Dr. Mason, I gotta get in with you, right? I'm gonna get it in with you, right? But the reality is, I say that with humor and in love.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, folks out there, that was kind of like a test run. Like, can y'all hear that out there? If you can hear it, say, give me a 1, or give me a 1 if y'all could hear that little last clip there for a second.
Yeah, put a 1 up if you heard it. Let's see them ones. Let me see
them ones. 1, 2.
Yeah, they can hear it, bro.
Oh, they can hear it?
Yeah, I see a lot of ones.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Now let's try it again. All right, let's go to the Jabari clip. We're going to start from the beginning. And I wonder if I can. Matter of fact, I'm going to up the volume even more than that. Okay, maybe I'm not. Okay, it's not letting me do it. Okay. Oh, that's why, because I got it on the wrong thing. All right, here we go.
All right.
Let's try that. Gang banging in the conscious community. Gang banging in the church. Gang banging in the Kemetic temple. We're not going to do that today. I spent so much time. Researching my dear brother, Dr. Bantu, and research, and I keep telling Dr. Mason, I gotta get in with you, right? I'm gonna get it in with you, right? But the reality is, I say that with humor and in love, because as I research these brothers, as I research Chris Broussard, these are moral, good brothers. These are not people that I cannot work with because I carry. And let me say that I'm also a priest, a high priest, in fact, of Ma'at. And that does mean that I am obligated to tell you the truth. Now, sometimes when I tell the truth, people get bruised. I want to say at the offset, that is not my intention to harm anyone. And if I tell the truth and you are bruised, the only thing that I will ask is that you reevaluate your connection to the truth. That is what I intend to bring here to you today. So let's go. First of all, let's just recognize that 8 in 10 African Americans are Christian. 8 in 10. How in the world could I have animosity for you when you are us? But I want to say to you that perhaps one of the reasons why we are here is because there was something we needed to do, something we needed to get in order to go where we needed to go. And I'm going to argue to you today, brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, that time is over. I have respect and admiration for ancestors like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Nat Turner. Christians who fought for our liberation. They are my ancestors as well as they are yours. But I must also say that I'm always thinking about an African proverb that says, if you use a boat to cross a river, you don't hoist it upon your back to climb a hill. It is time for us to reevaluate those things that we have been given.
You know what? Actually, I do want to pause it right there, if I could, right quick.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. I wasn't gonna let it play out for the whole 5 minutes, but I just can't let that slide. I got to go ahead and get this in. I thought that was a very interesting point that you hear a lot, I think, from the conscious community now, is that you have people. So basically, the old argument was what has the church done for Black people, right? And then I think, apologists started, putting stuff on the table. I mean, the answer to that is a great deal, and we could get into that possibly. But now what I'm starting to see is this different argument where people can't get around the fact that the church has done a great deal for Black folks. And so now it's like, okay, yeah, it was cool for a time when we didn't really have a choice, and it was all right back then, but now we got to move on. You know what I'm saying? And I think that he really tried to capture that in this statement about, if you're on a boat, you know what I'm saying, once you reach land, you don't want to carry that boat up a hill. And I remember sitting there thinking when I was at the debate, like, well, yeah, well, what if there's another body of water on the other side of that hill? You know what I'm saying? Then I mean, it sounds catchy, and I get what he was trying to say, but I think that there's this assumption that, okay, we needed it back then. I'm saying it did some good, but we don't now. And I would actually argue that's not true. I think that there has been another body of water on the other side of whatever he would describe as being that hill. You see what I'm saying? And so I just want to give a quick example right there. Did you want to say something before I get into that? Or
yeah, I mean, it was a very nice proverb, but it is kind of begging the question, right? Because it assumes that you've arrived at the island.
Okay.
It assumes that we made it.
Right.
I don't know. Have we made it, Adam? Like,
nah, I don't think so, brother. I think we got a little ways to go.
Yeah,
I think we got a little ways to go. Right.
Yeah,
right,
so it's a little, we're not there yet. I mean, we hope to be there. Right, that's our hope to actually arrive, but we're not there yet. We're still on that journey.
Right. Right. Exactly. So
also the whole idea too of it was another argument you hear is, well, this is all we got. Right. So that's what we used. Let's say that's true. It wasn't, but let's say that was true.
Right.
Let's say you have crippling arthritis on your right hand. Right. And the only thing you have in your house is olive oil. And you rub the olive oil on your hand, and somehow it works. You can now move your right hand. Imagine someone coming to you and saying, yeah, but that's all you had, though. I'm like, the mere fact that the only thing that I had was the actual cure,
right,
it's pretty amazing, right? So, yeah, that's it.
Maybe some olive oil providence going on there. You know what I'm saying?
Something's going on. Yeah,
exactly. So here's what I thought about, right? And this is something that I've written on, before. I just want to toss a couple thoughts out there. But when he talks about, what we needed back then, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm seeing that, it's not just what we needed back then, but as you pointed out, he assumes we already arrived. And, with the same note, you know what I'm saying, like, what if you have another body of water on the other side of that hill, kind of, going back on his African proverb there. And so I thought about this, right? I want to hit you over with a couple things. When you think about Africans in the Western world, not just African Americans, but Africans in the Western world, right? From the time we got over here, you know what I'm saying, we think about chattel slavery, there's always been a personhood issue, right? Racism is predicated, on an assault on personhood.
Yes.
Right. Is what I've often called it like that dismemberment of the soul. You know what I'm saying, when you take a group of people and you reduce them down to biological farm equipment, essentially. Right.
Yep.
So that dynamic, you know what I'm saying, has always been a part of, what we often call the struggle. Right. And so when I think about Christianity, one thing I think a lot of folks don't appreciate is that all throughout, you know what I'm saying, the abolitionist movement, you know what I'm saying, you see people appealing to the biblical notion of being made in the image of God as a counter argument against, you know what I'm saying, chattel slavery and the underpinnings of that assault on personhood. So I just want to quote right quick. First of all, matter of fact, I'm gonna share my screen. That was a little bit dangerous last time I tried to share it, but let's try it again. I want to bring up a guy that I've often quoted, actually. Let me see here. My man, Dr. Albert Rabbitoe. And he's talking about the experience that African enslaved persons had, you know what I'm saying, and when they were converted. And he's talking about the conversion experience and what that meant to the African, right? And he says this. He says, amidst a system bent on reducing them to an inferior status, the experience of conversion rooted deep within the slave convert's psyche a sense of personal value and individual importance that helped to ground their identity in the unimpeachable authority of Almighty God. End quote. That's Dr. Albert Rabbitoe, right? Princeton professor emeritus. And I think that's from that's from his book, from the foreword, rather, of one of his works, God Struck Me Dead, right? And he just so he's just saying there that, again, we think about slavery so often, we think about just the physical aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? The ball and chain, the working in the cotton fields. But no, it was more than that. It was an internal assault. And as he describes, it was the conversion experience that says, no, know what I'm saying, I'm not just biological farm equipment. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The conversion experience took the authority, you know what I'm saying, in a sense, in terms of who we were, out of the hands of the slave master and put it where it ought to have been in the first place, which is
Right.
in the eyes of God. You know what I'm saying, this is who I am. This is how I'm valued. Right.
Right.
So in a sense, it was like, you know, the conversion experience was like saying, hey, look, you might have my body, but you can't have my soul.
Right.
You can't define who I really am.
Mhm.
That's what the conversion experience, you know, was for the African enslaved person.
Right.
See what I'm saying? And then further than that, so it's like this conversion becomes like this this form of personal resistance. But then we can take it further than that, because as I mentioned a second ago, you know, I mean, there's so many different quotes. I only pick one of them, but there's so many different quotes where you can look at abolitionists appealing to this biblical notion of the image of God, you know what I'm saying, and employing that in their argumentation, you know, against the system of chattel slavery. I'm just going to give you one of them, right? This is from an escaped slave himself, you know what I'm saying, and minister Leonard Black, right? This is from his memoirs, The Life and Sufferings of Leonard Black. He says, quote, "Is man to be considered a mere ox to be bowed up and stall fed? Has he not a mind capable of rising higher and higher in all that is expansive, pure, and holy? Has he not within him a spark of pure divinity, which when he is surrounded by high and ennobling influences is fanned into a light so bright as to lead us to respond to the glorious truth that man is indeed made in the image of God? Do you talk of selling a man? You might as well talk of selling immortality or sunshine," end quote. Now, again, this is Leonard Black arguing against, you know, the system of chattel slavery, and he's employing this biblical notion of being made in the image of God. He's saying that based upon who we are, made in God's image, it is inappropriate to speak of selling a man, right? And so again, you know, when I think about, you know, going back to Jabari's quote about, you know, we needed that back then, and, you know, but now it's time to let that go. Listen, all worldviews, you know what I'm saying? Let me backtrack for a second. And you mentioned this last time we were on, okay? There are certain existential questions that all worldviews have to answer in a coherent and consistent manner if they're to be taken seriously. You know what I'm saying? And among those questions are, who am I? Who am I? That is a fundamental philosophical question that all worldviews have to account for. You know what I'm saying? And the fact of the matter is, all worldviews are not created equal.
Right.
They're not all created equal. You know what I'm saying? So if you have a naturalist worldview and man is just, you know, biological matter or whatever, then okay, well, you know, maybe you can justify, you know, selling other people and treating them as slaves, because if survival of the fittest is all there is to it,
Right.
then shoot, I mean, whoever's fit, boom, they can enslave whatever.
Right.
I'm saying that was some of the underpinnings of, you know, the Holocaust that we saw. I'm saying, and even slavery as well, because I wish I could bring up this Charles Darwin quote. Actually, maybe I'll bring it up later. But he actually, you know, spoke about how it was his prediction that the advanced races would eventually destroy the, you know, the savage races. That was Charles Darwin that said.
Right.
Actually, I know it's in my notes, so I'll bring that up later. But my point is, I'm saying, is that this personhood, right? This biblical notion of being made in the image of God answers that existential question in a way that allowed for African people to contend for their freedom. And we're still doing it today. When people talk about Black Lives Matter, you know what I'm saying, and all that kind of stuff. Well, I would argue that if there is no God and all there is the natural world, then no lives matter. You know, I actually wrote an article, and you guys can check it out on the Free Thinking Ministries website, called, you know, Black Lives Don't Matter. And it really just kind of runs through that. It's like, you know, if there is no God and all there is nature, then no lives matter. You know what I'm saying? Again, you know, all worldviews aren't created equal. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so we can't just dispense with something, you know what I'm saying, just because, you know, we don't like the taste of it or whatever. You know, I don't know. I mean, there's some fundamental questions that need to be answered. And the fact of the matter is, identity is one of those questions. And you know, I'm gonna end it off with this. I know I'm saying a lot, but the other side of it is the concept of identity intersects with ethics. You know what I'm saying? How you identify somebody determines how you're going to treat them. So like right now, you know, you've got this, you know, the abortion issue is really big right now. Mm-hmm. Well, if you think that fetus is just a clump of cells, you know, no different than, you know, like a cataract or cancer, then yeah, you can just dispel of it if you don't want it. It's just cells, right? I'm saying, but if you understand that child, I'm saying, it's not just a fetus, it's a baby. You know what I'm saying? It's made in the image of God, right? It carries the sanctity, you know what I'm saying, the sacredness, right, of being made in God's image. then that's going to totally shift your perspective on the abortion issue. You can say, well, no, we need to protect that. We need to safeguard, this child. It's not just a clump of cells. Right. And so with that being said, even in today's time, it's essential that we adhere to a framework, I'm saying, that we can build upon, a moral structure upon. Right. And you can't say that for all worldviews. And actually, now I'm holding back a little bit, but I would actually argue, and I have argued in the past, that the Kemetic worldview specifically, the spiritual sort that Jabari adheres to, can't justify the kind of moral claims that he's making. But that I'll get back to that at a later point. You want to come back on that? Yeah, that was it. That was my little spiel right there.
No, I was going to make sure. No, I mean, it's about identity and agency, right? Yeah. And we see that from the very beginning of Genesis, that we are made in God's solemn, right? That's the word that's used there. Solemn means to be a representative figure, right? Our identity is to represent Yahweh in this world. And the woman was created to do likewise. We are both to work in tandem to represent God. Now, all different types of identities have value. Being a husband, a dad, son, daughter, they all have value. But the solemn of God trumps all of identities. That is the most important identity. And when Black and brown people embrace being solemn, that's when change occurred, because we decided that we're going to be like our creator, so. Yeah. Right.
Well, I see Dr. Eric Mason in the chat. What up, Dr. Mason?
What's going on, Mr. Mason?
What did he say? He said, they screaming science now. You know what I mean? That's the thing about it, man. Look, man, I guess I can say, I spoke to Unc the other day on the phone with him and Garfield, right? I'm not going to go too far into it. But those are some of the guys that are screaming science. Like, bruh, I don't know why they think that, us Christians are ignorant, man. I don't know why they think that we can't, bro, wherever you want to go, science, philosophy, history, wherever y'all want to go, we here for that. That's what it is.
You know what's funny though?
That's what it is.
Is it science or is it scientism? You know what I mean? Is it because it's more than just the ability to observe natural phenomenon with them. It's a philosophy. Right? They believe that all answers come from, a test tube and a beaker. You know what I mean? And it's like there's a religious quality that they have when it comes to science. It's not just science proper, right? There's something else going on that needs to be talked about. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see you, MJ Jackson. You're right. You know what I'm saying? Scientism it's a philosophical stance. You know what I'm saying, but we're gonna get back to this tape because there's so many different ways we can go with it, man.
Right.
All right. But I just want to say that, man, like when he says, we don't need the boat anymore. Look, bro, we still in the water from where I can see. We still got a lot of battles to fight. And I don't care where you want to go with it. You know what I'm saying? If you're engaged in a moral struggle, you had better have a framework, you know what I'm saying, a worldview in which you can give a coherent, consistent answer with respect to identity and human value. You know what I'm saying? And but all right, let me keep going, man. Let me keep going. All right. I think they can see this.
And take a very cold, clear-eyed view of the things that we do, because those people who sought to subjugate us, those people who sought to destroy us, gave it to us. That is as plain as I can make it. I want us to understand and think about how this image of Ost, you might know her as Isis. Who knows Isis? Let's see by show of hands. And who is calling her Ost or Osset? I want us to find out how this image of Ost suckling her son Heru became this.
All right, you can stop it.
That's what we must study and understand.
You can stop.
I know that some of you.
So you've had enough.
No, I didn't have enough. It's just he's hitting on a particular point.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen real quick.
All right.
Let me see here.
Yeah, because I want to go back to that point he made about the worldview they gave us, so the religion, whatever term he used. But I'll let you do your thing right quick.
Now, this is, I think, the slide in question that he used. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's trying to make an equivalence with a set with this depiction of what people consider the Virgin Mary. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this happens quite a bit within this community. And this is something that I want other Christians to be aware of. Now, of course, they're not monolithic. Not all of them do this, but it's something you want to be aware of. It's called parallelomania, right? Parallelomania refers to a phenomenon where authors perceive apparent similarities and construct parallels and analogies allegedly without historical basis, right? So we have two pictures of two women nursing their children. And for some reason, they'll put these two pictures together and they'll say that there's an actual relation between these two pictures, right? And the thing you have to understand is that correlation does not mean causation.
Right.
Right? Because for this to be a compelling argument, they would have to prove that mothers nurturing babies started in Kemet.
Yeah.
Right? They would have to actually prove that.
Right.
You know, mothers have been nurturing their children since there's been mothers, right? So it's like, it's hard for you to say this came from that. And this is something that you see quite a bit. Another version of this is verbal parallelomania, right? Claiming verbal or conceptual links and even dependency of meaning based on parallels alone, being selective in using certain parallels to establish meaning or seeing parallels in every occurrence of a word. You know, they'll take different words that sound the same, but the problem is we're using the English versions of these words. And if we used to go back to the actual languages these words come from, they don't sound the same, right? But they're hoping that you don't understand that and that they can get over on you with what it sounds similar, so it must be similar. That's not how language works. Right. So that's something you always want to be mindful of, this parallelomania. So let me stop sharing.
Yeah, and that's actually going to come up quite a bit in the obviously in the second round. You know what I'm saying, when that drops, you know what I mean, when it comes to, you know, trying to explain away Jesus' existence with all this kind of mythicism stuff. But I'm actually going to, you know, it actually paid off being bootleg, because I had the slides that I have for right here. I attached it to a previous presentation I had instead of making a new one. But fortunately, I had this quote somewhere in that presentation. Let me share this screen right here. And this actually goes to his point that he made about, you know, the religion that they gave us, the tradition that they gave us. I mean, we hear this all the time, man. And to be fair, like, you know, before I say this, to be fair, like just growing up, like that notion, you know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, let me go. I think I have a slide for that too. All right,
Okay.
hold up.
Hold up.
All right. So, all right, yeah. So this image right here, right?
Uh-huh.
This right here, this is
that meme scholarship.
Yeah,
that meme scholarship.
That meme scholarship. But I think this is what most people probably just picture without even questioning it. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to how African enslaved persons encounter Christianity. You know what I'm saying? You got the enslaved person here in a Toby-like fashion, you know, and the slave master over here with a Bible and a bullwhip just beating it into him. You know what I mean? And that right there, I mean, I believed it too. You know what I'm saying? When I was, I just never questioned that. Now I call it the Farrakhan version or the bubblegum version. You know what I'm saying, of slavery history, if you will.
Right.
But now check this out. I got this quote right here. Now I'm gonna tell you what this right here. I'm not lying. This quote right here changed my whole perspective. And it took me from this right here to, you know, what I'm about to explain in a minute. Now listen to, this is W.L. Bost. I'm saying he was an enslaved person. He says, us slaves.
Bro, can you make it bigger so people can see it? It's kind of small. Can you present?
Yeah.
Is there any way you can do that?
Is that better?
If you guys can see it, put a 1 up. Put a 1 up if you can see that.
Because I'm crossing over like my YouTube, so I can't see myself. Can they see it?
Putting up ones? You guys can see that?
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know if they're saying anything yet.
I might be able to. Maybe I can do a slideshow or.
Yeah, just make it as big as you can.
Oh man, it started from the beginning though. Dang.
Oh well, that's not good. Yeah, they can see it. They can see it. I see the ones up now.
They could decide. They saw it before or no?
Yeah, they said it was small though.
Okay.
Can you guys see it now?
Got a little technical. We're getting the kinks out. Can they see it or?
Yeah, they can see it, but there's a full screen. You can't put the
There
full
we go.
screen.
Yeah, I just pushed the wrong button. There we go. They should be able to see that right there, right?
I see nothing now. I see darkness.
Oh, for real?
Darkness is spreading, brother.
Oh, golly.
Darkness
all right, I'm just gonna read the quote, man. It's all good. I'm just reading
okay.
It. You know what I'm saying? All right. So basically,
there you go. Now we see it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So this is W.L. Boss. He says, us slaves never have a chance to go to Sunday school and church. The white folks fear for slaves to get any religion and education, but I reckon something inside just told us about God and that there was a better place hereafter. We would sneak off and have prayer meeting. Sometimes the patrollers would catch us and beat us good, but that didn't keep us from trying. End quote. That's W.L. Boss, a former enslaved person. I read that joint, right? I came across it in a book of slave narratives where I was grappling with these questions myself. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wait a minute. Like, it just kind of like, it didn't fit. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought that, African enslaved persons just got beat into Christianity, full stop. Like, that was it. That was the cookie cutter way in which all Africans encountered Christianity. But here you have this guy saying that the slave master didn't want him to go to Sunday school, right? They didn't want him to go to church and fear that they got any religion. Okay. So it was like, oh snap. Well, maybe there's a bigger picture that I'm missing here. Maybe I haven't done my homework. I just kind of took it for granted that Farrakhan was right. You know what I'm saying? And that was all there was to it. And then I came across this one here. This is from former slave person John Brown. He said, Master John's wife would start the meeting with a prayer and then would come to singing the old timey songs. But the white folks on the next plantation would lick their slaves for trying to do like we did. No praying there and no singing. I came across that joint. I'm saying, like, shortly after the first. I'm like, well, wait, so there is something going on here. This just wasn't an isolated incident of one individual who was prevented from going to church. And so as I began to study the slave narratives, African enslaved persons speaking in their own words, then what I found was like, wait a minute, I started finding more and more of these quotes. I'm like, there's actually a bigger picture here. It's not the case that, as Jabari presented, it's kind of this simplistic, we just got it beat into us and that was it. The fact of the matter is, I'm saying there was a number of different ways in which African enslaved persons encountered Christianity. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm saying, but when it comes to, we could talk about the hush harbors, how they would have to sneak away and worship in their own. I found quotations where a gentleman was describing how they would sneak away at night and they would use wet blankets to make what he referred to as a tabernacle. So that, the wet blankets would dampen the sound so that he couldn't be heard by the slave master. I found different instances where they would take a basin of water and they would like pray or speak into it, or pray or sing into it, so that would kind of dampen the sound as well, right. So they wouldn't get caught. And people getting beaten and all that kind of stuff for sneaking off and having church. I mean, there's all these different instances that are right there in the primary sources, right there in the narratives of these African enslaved persons speaking about their own experiences that I'd never heard nothing about.
Right.
And so it just changed my whole perspective. I realized that people like Jabari were just like myself. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know as much about our own history as we thought we did. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, I've done a whole series on this, so people can just check out the podcast. But the fact of the matter is, matter of fact, I'm just gonna go to this last slide and then move forward. Here's some legal cases. You know what I'm saying? Felix petition to a Massachusetts court in 1773. Peter Best's petition for freedom in 1773. Petition made by a number of Africans to Judge Thomas Gate in 1774. These are some of the things when I'm doing presentations I speak on. These are legal cases in which enslaved persons are advocating for their freedom. You know what I'm saying? And they're actually appealing to biblical principles to do so. You know what I'm saying? So it's not the case that you just have a bunch of Africans getting beat into Christianity. The fact of the matter is, like I talked about with Albert Rabbitoh, you have the conversion experience, which becomes like this, personal resistance. You have the public resistance element where they're, appealing to biblical principles to contend against slavery. You got people who are actually contending for their freedom in court on the basis of them having been converted. They're saying, well, look, I'm a Christian, and according to your law, you're supposed to, Christians can't be slaves, so you got to set me free. These are the actual cases, I'm saying, in which they're making these appeals, right? So, when people just have this cookie cutter, just this small lens, like, oh, we were just beat into Christianity, that was it. They're telling me that they haven't done their homework. That's what you're really saying. If you believe, I'm saying, that is as simple as Jabari just made it a second ago, then what you're telling me is you haven't done your homework. I'm saying, in terms of what it is, the broader scope of the interactions between Christianity and African enslaved person. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna leave that there. You want to say something back on that before we go to the next clip?
I mean, it's funny. Me and shout out to Cherry Love. We actually had a conversation a couple of days ago about the slave narratives, and we was actually just exchanging slave narratives back and forth, and how it was so amazing that they fully understood that the plantation owner was giving them the flim flam gospel. Like they understood that. They were getting the dun gospel. They wasn't getting the real gospel.
Bruh.
They were fully aware of that. You know what I mean?
Actually, I'm gonna come back to that point in a minute, because he's gonna say something that I think will bring that to light. You know what I'm saying? But as a matter of fact, maybe we should go there now, because there's a couple things I wanted to say, because we're gonna be playing probably some large chunks, as he gets into his argumentation.
Right.
But before we get there, there's a couple things I want to say from an argumentation standpoint. And so just keep that in mind, because I'm gonna come back there. Let me take this off the screen. Well, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna take it off the screen. I want to talk about. Now, this is actually the slide that I have for tonight. I want to talk about argument structure, okay? Because my perspective is, I'm you know what, we could go through point for point, but I kind of want to drop some nuggets in here. You know what I'm saying, as we go,
right?
So that people can kind of take what we do here and just not just information, but kind of like a how-to, right?
Right.
So anytime like you're in this, I'm looking at this debate, I'm thinking about argument structure. Okay, what is the question, and what does the person have to do to make their case? Okay, right. And so with the, Jabari is about to go into his argumentation, and what I'm looking at is I'm evaluating his presentation based upon what does he need to make the case, and has he done so? So I want to kind of give you like my lens right quick. And then we can move forward there. But before I do that, did you want to say something right quick? Because I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, I mean this is great. I mean, again, we really want to, it's not just we want to pontificate and opine all night long. We want to instruct and equip the saints to be able to do this on their own, whether it's face to face or on social media. Understanding how an argument works correctly.
How an argument works, exactly. So I'm not gonna try. Well, yeah, I'm gonna try to be real quick. I'm gonna take my time with it, but I'm gonna try not to take an hour.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go for it. Go for it.
But this is important though, because this right here sets the tone for how we evaluate argumentation. You know what I'm saying? So think about it this way. So the question is Christianity the white man's religion? Right? That's the question.
Right.
In this first round. Okay. Let me expand this a little bit. And so you got two different sides, right? You've got Bantu, you know what I'm saying, who's going to be arguing. I mean, excuse me, you got Jabari, who's arguing that Christianity is the white man's religion, obviously. And then you have Bantu, who's going to be, arguing the negative, that Christianity is not the white man's religion. Okay. So what I'm looking for from Jabari, as I'm sitting there, as I'm at the event, what I'm looking for from him is I need him to fill in this blank. Okay. Fill in the blank. Therefore, Christianity is the white man's religion.
Right.
Okay. This right here, hopefully they can see me highlight this. Can they see that?
Yeah, I can see
that. Okay. Right. So the therefore Christianity is the white man's religion. That's the conclusion that he's got to get to. He's got to get to that destination. Okay. What I'm looking for is for him to use argumentation and evidence to fill in the blank that gets me to this conclusion. Okay. Right. And I'm not going to evaluate him based on how articulate he is. I'm not going to evaluate him based upon how he can pull heartstrings and tap into preconceived notions about.
Though he is good at that. Let's give him some credit.
He's very good at it. He's very polished.
He's very polished.
That's a skill. That's a skill.
Yes.
And there's no doubt that he's very intentional about how he frames things, and he is good at appealing to emotions. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, Dr. Mason said something about that a second ago, appealing to emotions. But for me, I'm like this. What's going to move me is argumentation and evidence.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a thinker. You know what I'm saying? Emotions have a role in our lives, but when it comes to building a worldview, when it comes to how I live my life, I need evidence of argumentation. You know what I'm saying? That's what I need from you. If you're going to change my mind about something, it can't be just about the touch and feel it stuff. So again, the question is Christianity the white man's religion? Jabari is trying to argue that it is, and he needs to fill in the blank for us to get us to this conclusion. I'm saying XYZ, therefore Christianity is the white man's religion. Right. Now, this is where, again, when this is getting into philosophy a little bit. Okay, I'm saying, so bear with me a little bit.
Let's go.
One thing I love about philosophy, it's probably the thing I love most about philosophy, okay, is that it's all about precision of language. Okay. Good philosophers do one thing extremely well. I'm saying consistently, and that's make important distinctions. Okay. They're very good at making important distinctions. Yeah, exactly. Defining terms and making important distinctions. Now, I'm glad you said that about defining terms, because notice, and people will see, so Jabari is about to go into his argumentation, and he has not defined Christianity yet. He's throwing the word Christianity around as this is just a given as to what that means.
Right.
And so what's happening is, because he just presupposes that he and his opponent are on the same page as to what that means, what he ends up doing, and what people will see, is that what he ends up doing is missing the target of getting to this conclusion.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Because we're going to see in a second where Dr. Bantu defines Christianity. I'm going to play that clip in just a minute. You know what I'm saying? But because Jabari doesn't take time to define his terms, he ends up missing the mark. Yep. You know what I'm saying? He ends up being imprecise in his argumentation, and that's crucial. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, let me do this before I go any further. Let's take a second and look at Bantu. Normally, so for the most part, I won't be jumping ahead, but I do want to play this clip from Bantu where he defines, Christianity. All right. So just give me this. If you want to say a little something while I'm getting there, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, could I share something real quick?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let me share my thing real quick. Hold up.
Yeah, you good.
All right, cool. So this might come as a shock to some people, but words have meaning. Right. And the way the English language works, right? We have this thing called a suffix, right? And when we're talking about Christianity, right, the ITY is a suffix. Anytime you see an ITY at the end of a word, it's state or degree, right? So if you have a community, it's a state of communion with other people, right? That's what that means. The word Christ is, the Korean Greek for Messiah or Mashiach, the anointed one, right? So Christianity is the state of being Messiah. So when we're talking about Christianity, we're talking about people making an honest effort to be within a state or degree of being like Jesus. That's Christianity. When we say Christianity, when you hear that word, that's what we mean. Someone really being, forthright and honestly trying to be in a perpetual state of being Messiah. So that's what I want to share. Great.
And matter of fact, before I'm gonna have you come back to that, because I'm gonna make a point off that. I'm gonna play this right quick, and then I want you to kind of restate that. I'm gonna piggyback off of it.
Let's go.
All right. So let's see. I'm at the 326 mark. That way, let me jot that down so I won't forget.
All right.
Okay. 326 mark. All right. All right, here we go. So this is Dr. Vince Bantu. This is early on in his presentation. He actually does define Christianity. Can y'all see that?
I can, but it's very small.
Yeah, I'm in large. I just want to make sure.
What I am here to defend today is what I'm defining as Bisrat based on various biblical citations. So this is the parameters I'm drawing around what I understand to be the community of Bisrat, the message of Bisrat that our Lord Yeshua of Nazareth preached 2,000 years ago. And that is that the creator of everything, God, Shangdi, Zarathustra, whatever word your culture uses to call the great creator of all things, who is perfect and who has existed from time immemorial, that creator, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, made humanity, each and every one of us, in his image, And despite humanity's rebellion against his rule and incapacity to live in complete harmony with his perfect will, makes available to all humanity salvation from eternal separation from him only by grace through faith in the incarnation of the Messiah Jesus, fully God and fully human, who lived a perfect life, died on a cross, becoming the object of divine wrath for human sin, and rose from the dead, so that all who trust in him can, by the power of the Holy Spirit, live fully as witnesses to his kingdom, which will be fully realized at his glorious return. That's what I believe. That's what I will die for. That is the belief system that governs my entire existence, and that is what I'm defending. And so, just so we're clear on what Bisrod is. What do we mean by white people when we say?
Okay. So, very thorough in terms of how he's defining, Christianity. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it aligns with your point. So you said, again, you were talking about that suffix. I'm saying, the state. Or so you say it again. The state.
It's the state of being like Messiah. I mean, the it means state or being. That's what the suffix ity means. So if you put Christ it or Christianity, it's the state of being like Christ.
Good. Okay, cool. So that's where I want to go. So again, we're talking about making distinctions. Critical thinkers, is important that you make distinctions. Now, I'm going to talk about real quick 3 distinctions that Jabari failed to make that's going to shape the rest of his presentation in terms of why it's off course for bringing us to the conclusion. Okay. Now, and again, this is how I break down arguments. I'm saying when somebody's making an argument, it doesn't matter what argument it is. I want to know, can they get me to that conclusion? Do they have premises that get me to the conclusion? That's what I want to know. And so clarity is important for this. So let me share the screen once again. Man, we're like 3 minutes into the video.
It's gonna be a long night.
It's gonna be a long night.
First verse.
All first verse. Yeah. First verse.
We got all night. Let's go.
Oh man. All right. So again, this is where he's got to get to. He's got to get us to, therefore Christianity is white man's religion. Now, the first distinction, I wish I had a slide for this, but I was rushing. Matter of fact, I'll just make one because I can do that. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're the man.
I can do that. I think they can see this, so I'm just going to do it. Christianity, and we just defined it, versus the church. Right?
Okay.
Christianity versus the church. That's an important distinction. You know what I'm saying? Now, if he wants to say that Christianity itself is the white man's religion, it doesn't do him much good to lob, stones at the church. You know what I'm saying? Full stop. He's got to do more work than that. You know what I'm saying? In order for him, and I'm going to demonstrate why. You know what I'm saying? But what you're going to see, throughout most of his commentary, he's not bashing Christianity. He's not giving evidence that Christianity is the white man's religion. He's making assumptions that there's a connection between the deeds of the church and church folk, you know what I'm saying, such that, one can infer or that one can assume that Christianity is the white man's religion.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he's not actually arguing for that. He's just saying that a bunch of bad people did bad things. And he thinks that's enough to carry the case. But let me demonstrate why that's not. All right. So let me introduce, 2 concepts. Okay. In order for him to demonstrate that Christianity itself is the white man's religion, when he's throwing barbs at the church, right, he's got to demonstrate that what he's referring to as Christianity or whatever charges that he's bringing is something that necessarily follows from Christianity itself. Okay, let me say that again. In order for him to make the case, let me back up. In order for him to bring us to this conclusion that Christianity is the white man's religion, if he's going to cite the behaviors of Christians or the church, it's not enough just to cite those behaviors. He's got to demonstrate that those behaviors are indeed a necessary reflection of Christianity itself.
Right.
In other words, that these people, so for example, anybody could, I could say I could call myself a Kemetic today, and I could go, punch a Hebrew Israelite in the face in the name of Kemeticism. You know what I'm saying? Do I represent all of Kemetics? No. You know what I'm saying? There's another gentleman in the conscious community, Brother Reggie, for example. You know what I'm saying? He refers to himself as a Kemetic. You know what I'm saying? But it's my understanding. I could be wrong. But, they don't believe the same thing. Him and Jabari don't believe the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So you can say something or do something in the name of an ideology or in the name of a belief system and not, be reflective of the actual belief system. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so check this out. So I'm going to give you an example. Now, this goes back to the point that you were making earlier. For whatever reason, people today have lost the ability to make the distinctions that our ancestors made who actually endured slavery. I'm talking about people at that time, like you said, could see the flim flam. And for whatever reason, we've just lost that sense. Now, I'm going to bring to my man, the all-time great, Frederick Douglass. That's my dude. You know what I'm saying? That's my dude. Now, he says, Frederick Douglass says this. We're going to get deep in a second. He says, quote, "I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldest of all frauds, and the grossest of all libels." End quote. Now, look at what Frederick Douglass is doing here. Okay, he's saying there's a distinction to be made between the pure Christianity of Christ and the Christianity of this land. Well, what is he doing? I'm gonna throw a little bit of one of the laws of logic at you. You know what I'm saying? Check this out. We got the law of identity. Okay. In philosophy, classical logic, I'll say, to make it more specific, there's 3 logical laws, or whether, some people debate that, but there's at least 3 logical laws. One of them is the law of identity, that everything is identical to itself. So the thing is why that's significant is if there's something that's true about B that's not true about A, then we can logically infer that A and B are not the same. Right. You know what I'm saying? So let's say, for example, I'm talking to you, Alfredo. Actually, I'm not going to use me as an example. This is going to get kind of weird. But let's say you got a friend who says that you've never met his wife, and he's describing his wife to you, saying she's about 5'8", brown skin, got dreadlocks, and brown eyes, and so on and so forth. Right. That's how this friend describes his wife to you. Right. Right. And you just happen to be at the movies next week, and you see him booed up with a 6'5", blonde hair, blue eyed, female, right? Right. Now, there's something different about who he's booed up with than who he described to you. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't make you, so you would rightly infer that that's not his wife. You know what I'm saying? There's probably a problem there. Yep. As a Christian brother, you probably need to holler at him, talk to him. You know what I'm saying? Right. Why? Because you understand that there's something different about who he's booed up with than who he describes as being his wife. That's the law of identity at work. If there's something that's true about B that's not true about A, then that means that A and B, we can logically infer they're not the same. Right. Now, going back to Frederick Douglass, he says that Christianity itself is pure, peaceable, and impartial, right? But the false Christianity of this land is corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical. So these attributes, all right, these attributes belong to the Christianity of this land and do not belong to Christianity itself. Therefore, they're not the same. Right. He makes a distinction. This is the law. This is a law of logic, the law of identity. They're not the same thing. Right. Now, if Jabari wants to suggest that Christianity is the white man's religion, what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to take these attributes, right, and he's going to have to demonstrate from the teaching of Jesus, the New Testament. He's going to have to bring in the text, bring in Christian doctrine, and demonstrate how these attributes and whatever other ones he wants to charge against Christianity are indeed a part of Christianity itself. You know what I'm saying? And if he's not able to do that, then we have to say that there's then a distinction between, what he's referring to and Christianity itself. And therefore, they're not the same. We don't defend the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, hypocritical, whatever that was. I'm saying I side with Frederick Douglass. You know what I'm saying? So that's an important distinction that he's got to be able to make. And if he can't do it, then again, he's not able to bring us to his conclusion by just citing different bad things that the church has done. Now I got one more to go, but I want to pause there to see if there's anything you wanted to go with. I can make the other one.
Nah. You flowing, bro. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So again, cool. So I'm talking about this again. This is the kind of stuff that I think about. I'm a nerd, man. I'm a philosophy nerd. This is what I do. When I break down arguments, this is how I look at it. You know what I'm saying? What are the criteria that this person has to meet to make his argument successful? If Jabari is going to be citing behaviors the first criteria is he's got to demonstrate how the behavior he's citing from these, bad Christians or whatever is reflective of and a component of the actual teachings of Christ and Christianity as we defined it earlier. Here's the second one. I'm gonna go to another one of our legends here to demonstrate the second point. Okay. Marcus Garvey. Let me go ahead and read this one right quick. Come on, bro.
Yeah.
Bringing it out. Now, mind you, Marcus Garvey is he wouldn't be one of the founders or I guess he wouldn't be like the father of Pan-Africanism, but he certainly was like, the nephew. I'm saying he was definitely was like a major,
Absolutely.
Bedrock of RBG, Pan-Africanism and all that. And he says, I quote, and this is from his UNI papers. I can bring that citation. I thought I had it at the bottom. I'll bring it. I'll make sure I bring it to the to our next session for clarity. Actually, I'll put it in the chat. That's what I'll do. He says, I believe in God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. I endorse the Nicene Creed. I believe that Jesus died for me. I believe that God lives for me as for all men, and no condition you can impose upon me by deceiving me about Christianity will cause me to doubt Jesus Christ and to doubt God. I shall never hold Christ responsible for the commercialization of Christianity by the heartless men who adopt it as the easiest means of fooling and robbing other people out of their land and country. End quote. That's a mouthful right there. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to point out here, I don't know if I have a slide for that or not, so I'll just probably have to talk about it. Okay. So what I want to point out here is another distinction. Okay. There's a distinction between a thing in and of itself and how something is used, right? There's a distinction to be made there. Just because something was used for a negative purpose isn't necessarily a statement about that thing in and of itself. Just to use a quick example, people who've been following me on YouTube, I dropped a video a couple of weeks ago, 2 quick responses to people who claim that Christianity is the white man's religion. And I used a brief analogy. I'm in Virginia, you know what I'm saying? A couple of years ago in Charlottesville, we had the dudes walking around with tiki torches, talking about Jews won't replace us, the whole nine. It was just terrible debacle. And unfortunately, a woman was killed. I'm saying she was run over by, I think it was a Dodge Viper. I'm saying now, when the dude committed murder with a Dodge Viper, nobody went to the Dodge factory and started picketing and said, we need to get rid of Dodge. Right. And nobody, if you're driving around in a Dodge Viper today, nobody's going to give you the side eye because you're driving the same type of vehicle that the gentleman used the murderer used, to commit that heinous act. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because we understand that he used it for a purpose for which it was not intended. You know what I'm saying? A Viper is used to get around it. It's not used to mow people down in anger, right? And so again, there's this distinction between how the Dodge Viper was used and the actual intent that the folks at the Dodge factory intended it for. Okay, so likewise, when it comes to Christianity, nobody would deny, you know what I'm saying, that you have evil individuals, I'm saying, twisting scripture and doing all manner of things to use Christianity to subjugate other people. But just because they used it that way isn't necessarily a statement about Christianity itself. It's a statement about how depraved man is and how heartless, as Garvey says here, these heartless men who adopted as the easiest means of fooling and robbing other people out of their land and country. Garvey was able to distinguish between the commercialization and just, tomfoolery and evil and wickedness, I'm saying, of those who misuse Christianity from Christianity itself. Yep. But again, for whatever reason, today, people have a hard time making that distinction, even though, I'm saying, as Frederick Douglass, he was actually, during those times, Marcus Garvey wasn't an enslaved person. I'm saying, but, I don't know when it was that we lost that, I'm saying, but for whatever reason, we've lost sight of those kind of things. So again, this is where maybe we'll get back to the video. But if Jabari is going to make his case that Christianity itself is the white man's religion, if he's going to get us to this conclusion, right, then as he's filling in the blank of his evidence of argumentation against Christianity, what you'll see him do is talking about a bunch of bad things that Christians did, you know what I'm saying? Right. Or at least, supposed Christians. But the question is, when he's citing these bad behaviors, can he demonstrate that those behaviors are reflective of the act of Christianity itself in terms of Jesus' teachings and the things that, that Bantu described, and as you described a second ago, that's number one. That's the one criteria. And the second criteria, can he account for the distinction between evil intentions of an evil individual versus Christianity in and of itself? If he can't do that, then in principle, his argument fails. And
Right.
he can't bring us to the conclusion. Just in principle, he can't. It's not that he's wrong. He cannot possibly be right.
Right.
Because he hasn't accounted for the type of precision with respect to what Christianity is, and as you know, and the distinctions that I pointed out. All right. Whew.
Super facts. Super facts.
Right. Oh man, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it. All right, cool. You want to go in with that, man, or we want to?
No, we good, man. Let's keep it going.
Okay, cool. All right. How y'all doing out there? Y'all good? D News, hey, everyone, this is good.
They're having their own little conversations in the chat. It's all good.
Yeah, it's cool. They're just ignoring us, man. You know what I'm saying? But seriously, man, make sure you share this, hit the like button, the whole nine. As a matter of fact, while I'm queuing this next clip up, you want to tell them about just subscribe to your channel right quick while I'm bringing this up?
Yeah, definitely hit me up at BK Apologist on YouTube. You also could find me BK Apologist on Twitter, also on Instagram and TikTok, BK Apologist. So.
Okay, cool. So I think I was at the 326 mark. So let's go back. Man, we're not playing around out here, bro.
Let's get it.
We are not playing around. Okay, 3. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go.
Know that some of you were saying, that's not who I see when I pray. I get that. But I want you to understand that the institutions that you are part of want you to see this image. There's a reason. There is a reason. We're going to go further into it. Anyone know what this image is? This is Elmina slave dungeon, sometimes called slave castle. It is certainly not a castle to the Africans who were enslaved there. And I want you to understand that as I took my third journey there with my queen, who was sitting here, Dr. Nika Daniels Osaze and Furkan Ma'at, I must pay homage and give honor to the person that guides me and keeps me upright. As we went there, I was once again told about the painful experience that our ancestors, our direct ancestors experienced in, for example, the slave dungeon, where women would be packed there in a room that is about half the size of this, 300 to 500 women packed there for as many as 3 months, menstruating, using the bathroom, crying, bleeding, and eating all in the same space. In fact, recent excavations have actually shown us that about 4 feet of the floor, at least we thought it was the floor, was actually the refuse and the human remains and the bones and the skin and the tears of our ancestors in that space. And in fact, if you look at this courtyard here, where you'll see this elevated area, that's where the enslaver would stand to look at the women as they were trotted out to decide who he would rape. And if that woman said that she would not allow herself to be defiled, they would tie her leg to a chain, a ball and chain, and allow her to stay in the sun until she changed her mind or perished. And then you see the wasting cell that is there. The cell that they would take rebellious Africans and place in with no food and no water and allow them to die. And then when they die, they bring their bodies out into the courtyard and leave them for everyone to see. And just a few feet away, there's this. What is that? That's the church. You have to ask yourself, if our ancestors were praying and then slayers were praying, the divine force could have only answered some of those prayers. Whose prayers did they answer? This is a painful reality, but it is the reality. You should understand that after saying that Africans had no souls and would not be baptized as if we had a choice in the matter, then there were forced baptisms where we actually see, beginning with Father Bartolomé de las Casas, who talks about the enslavement of Native Americans, saying that actually Africans should be enslaved because we have no souls. And this begins the enslavement of Africans. And then we know, I'm going through this very quickly, I have 11 minutes left. Then you know that the papal bulls, the actual documents that come from the church, actually say that we will not only allow enslavement of our ancestors, but coordinate the enslavement of our ancestors. And then eventually, those Christians decide that they should force us to be actual Christians. Take a look at this. It actually says, and this comes from Spanish friar Juan Marquez in his book, El Gobernado Cristiano. By the way, virtually everything I say will be cited. I may not mention the citation, but please look at the screen. He says, oh, who can be so blind as not to see the great mercies God has bestowed upon unlearned Negroes through slavery, bringing them into the power of Christian lords who have given them light, the light of the gospel. These traditions were forced upon us. These traditions were given to us by Europeans who sought to destroy us. If you want to know more about this, this is an excellent book that I'd suggest by Catherine Gerbner, Christian Slavery. You need to take a look at this book. One of the reasons why we disagree very often is because people are not doing their own research. And it's of critical importance for us to do that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And on that note, I actually have a special guest with us. Well, not exactly. I got to stop it right there. Now, he just said that the book, I guess it was Christian Slavery, by Dr. Catherine Gerber. Well, I just so happen to have a clip. I want to give a shout out to Lisa Fields, who interviewed Dr. Catherine Gerber. Now, mind you, Jabari just got finished making his case that, Christianity was forced upon us. He makes this whole big thing, right? You know what I'm saying? He cites Catherine Gerber, you know what I'm saying, in her book, right? Well, let's take a look at her. Let's take a look at her describing. Let's take a look what she has to say about it. You want to say anything before I start this clip, or you want to?
Oh no, let it fly. Let it fly.
He just quoted Dr. Catherine Gerber, and I'm gonna let her quote herself. This is on the Jude 3 Project. Shout out to Lisa Fields. You know what I'm saying? Doing a phenomenal job with there. Make sure you subscribe to her channel and podcasts and whatnot. Dr. Gerbner, take it away.
Most Protestant slave owners in the early colonial period did not want their slaves to convert to Christianity. They thought of Christianity as a religion that was for free people, and they worried that a baptized slave would then demand freedom. So as a result, they excluded the vast majority of enslaved people from Protestant churches.
Wait a minute. You dropping a bomb? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. A bomb on him? I thought I clipped that part out. Hold on.
That actually was kind of cool, though. That kind of worked.
That was kind of cool. This is the full clip. This is the full clip. My apologies. That was kind of dope, though. It was a dope technical error. Let's try this again. Lisa Fields just asked her the question about Christianity and enslaved persons. And so
run it back.
Here we go. This is the right clip.
Most Protestant slave owners in the early colonial period did not want their slaves to convert to Christianity. They thought of Christianity as a religion that was for free people, and they worried that a baptized slave would then demand freedom. So as a result, they excluded the vast majority of enslaved people from Protestant churches. And I can give you a quick example of this. So in the 1640s, there was an Englishman named Richard Ligon who traveled to Barbados, and there he met an enslaved man who told him that he wanted to become a Christian, but that he wasn't allowed to. Richard Ligon, who was sort of new to slave societies, then went to this man's owner and said, this man wants to become a Christian. And that slave owner said, well, Christians cannot become slaves. Ligon corrected him and said that he didn't want to make a Christian a slave, he wanted to make a slave a Christian. To which the man then replied that the laws of England did not allow that, and that his fellow planters would curse him if he allowed such a thing to happen. So what we see here is a variety of reasons for this anti-conversion sentiment, as I call it. So first is the idea that Protestantism was equated with freedom. Second is this idea that the English slave laws didn't allow slaves to become Christian. But finally, there is this underlying fear that Christian slaves would rebel. And in fact, in one of the first letters that I found about this subject, Protestant slave owners are writing that Christian slaves would, quote, rebel and cut our throats. So there was this real fear about what would happen if enslaved people were allowed to be baptized.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, I've got to add a got him. Got him.
Yo, Adam, the people are saying that when you expand the video disappears. So just keep it small so people could see the images.
Okay, could they hear it though?
They could hear it, but it's only audio they were having. So just keep it small so they could see the visuals as well.
Okay, so but everybody got the point though, right?
Oh no, everybody's dropping bombs. Everybody's saying boom.
Okay, cool.
MJ
cool,
Jackson's right. Like, you good, Adam? You know what I mean? So yeah, they got you.
No, wait a minute. I already threw my got him in there, but
yes,
I need to run that back. I need to run. Now let's listen again. Let's listen again to what your boy Jabari said right before we went to that clip. Let's listen again to what he just has. Now listen to this right here.
Of course, if a great tragedy had happened to your ancestors, you would figure you would
raise the volume.
Place, right?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, my bad. Let me get the volume up. Yeah. Boom. That should be good. I want to hear all this right here.
I went to Elmina. Of course, I was in Ghana, right? You know that Elmina's in Ghana, right? Of course, if a great tragedy had happened to your ancestors, you would figure you would know where it took place, right? Why is it?
Oh, I think I started too late. My bad.
Well, what's the screen? He says, "Oh, who can be so blind as not to see the great mercies God has bestowed upon unlearned Negroes through slavery, bringing them into the power of Christian lords who have given them light, the light of the gospel. These traditions were forced upon us. These traditions were given to us by Europeans who sought to destroy us." If you want to know more about this is an excellent book that I'd suggest.
If you want to know more,
take a look at Europeans who sought to destroy us. If you want to know more about this is an excellent book that I'd suggest by Catherine Gerbner, Christian Slavery. You need to take a look at this book.
Yes, you do.
One of the reasons why we disagree very often is because people are not doing their own research.
No, Jabari, you need to take a look at the book. Jabari, you need to take a look at the book. That's the thing, bro.
Man, that's bad.
Now, mind you, listen. Jabari is constantly telling us. If you ever watch this man, he's always called himself a historian. I'm not dissing the man. I respect anybody's education. I'm just saying there was somebody who considers themselves to be a historian. My question is, how do you cite a book that's got claims in it that are diametrically opposed to what it is that you're trying to sell to people? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you miss that?
That's bad.
How do you miss that? I'm just saying. You know what I mean? So again, I want to throw in there, got him.
Oh man,
his hand got caught in the cookie jar, man.
Oh man,
got caught in the cookie jar. Come on, dog. Come on, man.
Hey, I got nothing to say.
I had to throw that in there, man. So, but you know what? While I'm at it, on a series though, there's a couple other things that I wanted to say. You know what I'm saying? Just real quick, because we're going to actually start getting into the history part. And I know you got some daggers coming, so I'm trying to get out of the way. Right. I don't get caught by the daggers. You know but he said something about, so between the enslaved persons and I guess the supposedly, Christian enslavers, right? I'm saying he makes a statement about, which one did the divine force, listen to? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You can't hear all his prayers. So whose prayers did he hear? Now, this is a common objection. People say, well, you praying to the same God as your oppressor. So, who's he listening to? Well, let me go to John 9:31 right quick. John 9:31. Now, mind you, when people are asking the question, you know what I'm saying, about who is our God, they're asking a theological question. Who, right. if you have the enslaved persons praying to God, and you have the enslavers praying to God, who is God listening to? They want, based upon our worldview. So we're going to answer from our worldview. You know what I'm saying, and the central text of our worldview is going to be scripture. This is what we're here to. This is what Jabari is supposed to be attacking, right? So that's why I'm going to this right here. So John 9:31, it says, we know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. This is echoed in 1 John 5:14. I'll read that as well. It says, this is the confidence that we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. So the answer to your question, Jabari, I'm saying between the enslavers and the African enslaved persons, we know that God wasn't listening to the evil prayers of the enslavers. That we do know. I'm saying whoever was praying, perhaps that they, you know, their chattel slavery business would flourish. And, you know, God is not honoring those prayers because those things aren't according to his will. I'm saying, how do we know that these things aren't according to his will? Right? Because God created all men in his image. And with respect to chattel slavery, if you're treating a person like an animal, you know what I'm saying, you're not treating that person according to the image that God created them in. You're also being partial, as Frederick Douglass described, right? So that can't possibly be his will. We also know that the scriptures tell us that man stealing is a sin. I can bring that up in 1 Timothy. You know what I'm saying? So when you're stealing people, under the old covenant, it was punishable by death, by the way. Under the new covenant, it's still listed as a sin. So we know that's not, you know, God's will. And furthermore, if you're subjecting a person to this sort of evil treatment for gain, that's clearly greed, which is a sin. So that's not in line with God's will. So any of these greedy, man-stealing, partial individuals, you know what I'm saying, who are praying to God, God is not hearing it. He's not hearing those prayers. You know what I'm saying? Now we do know, and this will get a little further than I want to go here, but we also do know that God does hear the oppressed. I'm saying when Abel was slain, God said that his blood calls out to me from the ground. You know what I'm saying? We can get into that as well, but that'll take us a little bit off course. So, you know, I'll kind of stick here, but I just wanted to answer that thing. I mean, you know, people talk about, oh, well, who, you know, what prayers, you know, is God listening to? Well, we know who he's not listening to. That we do know. You know what I'm saying? We know he's not listening to, you know, the enslavers. So that takes care of at least one side of that supposed dilemma. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that was. And I think I'll just leave it. I think I'll just leave it at that. Oh yeah, one last thing. You know what I'm saying, and then I'm gonna move forward with the clip. But we were talking about. Remember, I'm going back to my criteria for how, you know, Jabari filling in that gap to get us to his conclusion. And so far, what has he done? Is he assaulting? Is he throwing accusations at Christianity itself, or is he throwing accusations at the church? Well, he's throwing accusations at the church. He's saying the church, you know, participated in slavery. They had these people, you know, being whipped and, you know, women being, you know, tortured, so on and so forth. Those are all things that individuals did. And then, he points to, you know, the church was right there. Well, again, that's the church. The question is, has he actually tied those behaviors directly to the teachings of Christ and Christianity? He hasn't done that. You know what I'm saying, number one. Number two, we know that, you know, these individuals are doing it for monetary gain, right? And so he hasn't accounted for the distinction between what these evil deeds, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, them trying to, you know, I guess it's like they jumped into a white supremacy car and put a Jesus bumper sticker on. I'm saying, he hasn't accounted for that yet. And so he still hasn't met these two criteria. And I'll just give a quick example and then we'll get back to it. But he talks about the papal bulls. Now, it is true that the Catholic Church, I'm saying, popes, I want to say it's like Pope Innocent or something. You know what I'm saying, I get them all mixed up. I'm not a Catholic, so I don't really, you know, follow them like that. Maybe I should. But anyway, it is a fact that you do have a papal bull, which is basically a declaration of something being considered, you know, policy. You know, basically is the Pope setting policy for the church and those affiliated with the church. That's basically what that is. So, you know, so you do have the Pope issuing a papal bull, I'm saying, allowing for Africans to be enslaved. Now, my question is, again, can he tie that back to Christianity? Right. I'm saying, because the person that he quoted is that, oh, you know, isn't it great that these Africans are coming into, you know, Christianity through us enslavers? I mean, that's basically the guy that he quoted. Now, what did Jesus have to say about how his message of the gospel is supposed to be carried? He says in Matthew 28:16-20, is the Great Commission, said, then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Now, if you have African people, you're preventing them from getting married, you're preventing them from getting baptized, you're preventing them from being discipled fully because you're restricting their access to, you know, the Bible itself. Clearly, they're not carrying out the Great Commission. I'm saying, so the person that he's referring to, you know, the person that quote that he brought about, that's obviously You know, just like we had, again, that law of identity, where you have Frederick Douglass citing features of Christianity that of the supposed Christianity that isn't a part of Christianity itself. You know, this use of subjugation and slavery and enslavement to preach the gospel is not a part of Christian teaching. You know what I'm saying? Jesus also said that my kingdom is not of this world. This is John 18:36. My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight and prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but now my kingdom is from another place. So, you know, Jesus is not about the business of wrecking shop on people for the gospel's sake. As a matter of fact, in Luke chapter 9, the disciples, they come to a town where Jesus was rejected. It's 9:54, 55. And, you know, they was rejected. They rejected Christ and his teachings. And the disciples were like, look, you know, do you want us to call down fire from heaven and destroy him? And Jesus rebuked them for that. That's not how the message of Christ is carried. It's not carried through violence, subjugation, and all these negative kinds of things that Jabari is alluding to. So you can't tie these behaviors that he just cited to Christianity itself. So that's one criteria that he hasn't met thus far with the argumentation that he's made. Whew, you're having fun, man. Having fun, man. We're getting it in, man. We're getting it in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Let me keep it going. So this time I'll keep it minimized, right? Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah, so they can see the video.
All right.
And it's of critical importance for us to do that. And so when I went to Elmina, of course, I was in Ghana, right? You know that Elmina's in Ghana, right? Of course, if a great tragedy had happened to your ancestors, you would figure you would know where it took place, right? Why is it we don't know that? Well, when I was in Ghana, I saw the largest images of what I will call the Tomhu, or the white Jesus. They didn't just steal us. They remained on the continent, seeding division, discontent, and disunity. These are the images that I see, large images of a white Mary, a white Jesus. Look at this statue here. Gigantic. And I know that some of you are saying, yeah, that's West Africa, you know, we don't do that, right? Here's Abyssinian Baptist Church and Mother Bethel AME just a few miles from here. The Christian church has been the greatest purveyor of white supremacist thoughts. Someone say, ouch, if it hurts. It's true. It's true. And I know that some will actually say, well, Jabari, we know the enslavement story. We know that.
All right, man. My fault, man. I got to catch that right there, man. I'm sorry. I promise this is the last time I'm going to butt in.
Do you, son? Go ahead.
I'm just having fun. I can't let that ride, man.
Go
so
ahead.
He says that Christianity has been the greatest purveyor of white supremacy. My question is, how do you know? Like, how do you know that? Like, what are you basing that? What are you basing the claim that Christianity? Like, what are you basing that on? I'm saying, like, you just assert, and he follows up by saying, "Well, it's true." Well, are we supposed to just take your word for it?
Basically,
you haven't provided any evidence for that. You haven't provided any argumentation for that.
But again, that's why it's so important to define terms, right? Because we know that Christianity is the state of being like Christ. So, is the state of being like Christ part of white supremacy? That's what you got to ask.
No, obviously not.
Right. So
obviously not. And he's saying that Christianity is the greatest. You know what I'm saying? Purveyor. I'm saying with no sort of backing. So, as I was thinking about this today, I kind of just thought this through, right? So he's making the claim that Christianity is the greatest purveyor, right? Now, let's just think this through for a second. You know, you can't have white supremacy without white supremacists, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So here's the thing. You know, if I can find, put it this way, let me back up for a second. If I can find a greater cause of white supremacy, a greater purveyor, then it just debunks his claim. Now, he hasn't made any argumentation for it. I'm about to make my argument right here, right? To come up with a greater purveyor. I suggest to you that the greatest purveyor of white supremacy is white supremacists. It's white supremacists. I mean, just think about it, right? First of all, wherever white supremacy is being promoted, you can trace it back to a person who was a white supremacist, including white supremacists in church. I'm not saying that there aren't any. Sure, there are some people in the church who, you know, guys got to work on them, whatever.
Sure.
However you want to characterize it, that's fine.
Sure.
I'm saying whichever white supremacists are in the church, you know what I'm saying? Let's just say that they're there, right? So they can account for whatever white supremacy we find in the church. Let's just say that, right? But not all white supremacists are Christians, right? So you have some folks, for example, like a Richard Spencer, for example. People probably don't know him. He's the guy who's considered to be the founder of the alt-right.
Right.
So I heard him talking one day, and believe it or not, there's actually a white version of the conscious community. Believe it or not, you know what I'm saying, you have a group of white folks who would say that Christianity was not their indigenous religion. You know what I'm saying, because before you have Christianity coming to Europe, you had different pagan religions. You know what I'm saying? So you actually have people today who worship Odin. They call themselves Odinists, right? And they tend to be white supremacists as well. So my whole point is, not all white supremacists are Christians. Some of them are Odinists, or practice some sort of Celtic or whatever other pagan European religion. Now here's my point. I'm saying that white supremacists are the greatest purveyor of white supremacy. So because they account for both white supremacy in the church, and they account for white supremacy outside the church. And if I can account for white supremacy with those who I claim to be the greatest purveyor, both inside the church and outside the church, then it has to be greater, right? Because it's accounting for a greater amount of white supremacy, right? So my whole point is, he just he doesn't substantiate his claim. He just say, oh, just trust me, or basically it's true. Well, no, I would suggest to you that white supremacists are the greatest purveyor of white supremacy, and they use different mechanisms. They use misuse Christianity as a mechanism of getting their white supremacy across, but they can use capitalism. They can use any ism you want. You know what I'm saying? What's it called? Hitler and them. You know what I'm saying? They use gas chamber. There's a bunch of different things they can use to, forward their white supremacy. But,
right.
Again, it's just silly. You know what I'm saying? If we can identify a source of white supremacy that is behind both white supremacy in the church and outside the church, then I'd say we'd identify a greater purveyor of white supremacy than the church. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, it's just, when he says things like that, he just asserted it. He gave no back and forth. And what he's doing is he's depending upon the emotional weight of that statement to carry the argument. But that's why we can't be led by emotions. We've got to actually look at the content of what he's saying and then break and consider the logic of it, or lack thereof. You know what I'm saying? Whew. All right. Had to get that off my chest. Here we go.
No doubt.
Actually were not Christians until our enslavement. However, they will say, and I'm sure my dear brother will say this, by the way, I'm going to show you why he shouldn't. I'm warning him. But just take a look at this story here. They're going to talk about Nubia. They're going to talk about Ethiopia and say, well, these were early Christian communities. But did those communities become Christian in a bloodless, costless manner? That's the story they do not want you to know. Take a listen. Of course, the sound isn't up. Here we go. What I want to say is, while this is a brother that I respect and love, that doesn't mean that he's not above being chastised for things that he said. So I want you to hear him say properly that there are early Christian communities, but then also say something very interesting about the Kemetic tradition and Kemetic people. Listen.
In the Latin-speaking West in North Africa, like where Augustine and Tertullian are from, and then Egypt, which was mostly Greek-speaking. But then you got two more, and these are independent African kingdoms. And these are black kingdoms, right? Egyptians and North Africans, they wasn't black. They was, like they are now, they brown, right? Light skin. And so, but they weren't black, and black people was always trying to be like, oh, they was black. Like, no, they weren't black, They draw paintings and stuff. They talk about black people as if they're not black, right? It's in the primary text. We don't have to go to say that the Egyptians was black to feel proud of African history. You know why? Because we got two other proud kingdoms that we can say was definitely black. And why don't we look at them? I don't understand why more of us don't say, what about Nubia? That was a black ancient African kingdom, just as old as Egypt. They built more pyramids than the Egyptians did, or I should say, more of them survived to the present than Egypt did. Let's talk about Nubia or Kush. And then, of course, we got Axum, Ethiopia, another black sub-Saharan African kingdom.
We're going to stop that there for the sake of time. I want you to recognize that those are the two nations that people always mention. Well, Christianity is very old. I remember when I was younger, people would hand me copies of the Keber Nagas. This is the Black Bible, they would say. And I knew my Rastafarian brothers would also talk about Selassie and about the traditions that come out of Ethiopia and the traditions that come out of Nubia. But how did they become Christian nations? There's the part that people don't tell you. Well, you have to take the journeys and learn the story. You're seeing here an image of my queen and I journeying to Ethiopia, a magnificent place, but one with a difficult history in some instances. We can't just insert Ethiopia and insert Nubia and then correct the reality that Christianity has been damaging to our people, destructive of our nation, destructive of our history. Why I'd say that we are in the midst of the greatest example of identity theft. You should know that this is how Ethiopia becomes Christian. It originally followed ancient African traditions until a man who was actually taken as captive named Bishop Frumentius, actually who was a Syro-Greek, became the tutor of the king's son. And he actually, now think about this, he's working with a child. A child. Well, I would actually say to you, think of it this way. Would you want, dear Christian brothers and sisters, for you to send someone to school, your child to school, and they return and say they're not the same spiritual tradition as you? How comfortable would you be with that?
All right, you can stop it there.
Okay.
You can stop it there.
And
All right.
All right, that's a whole lot, right?
Yeah. Rock out. Yeah, what you got?
The whole Egypt thing, right? He thought he had like some kind of gotcha thing with Bantu when Bantu said they weren't black, right? But he's what does he say though? He said they weren't black, they were what?
Is it like brown and
right?
Yeah, like,
he doesn't say they're white.
Right.
He never says white, right? He infers that's what he says, but he never says it on the tape, right?
Right.
Now we do know that this is what, first century? No, we're talking 4th century, 5th century, right?
Yeah, as far as I can tell, the period.
So is Egypt the same ethnic makeup in the 5th century than they were in like pre-dynastic Egypt? Is it the same makeup?
No, I mean, as far as
we got the Ptolemies,
right.
Alexander the Great ran through there. The Ptolemies ran through there, right. It's mixed, bro. It's not, And Bantu's whole point is, since you guys are so into blackness,
right,
you should love you some Nubia, because if you want to talk blackness, let's talk Nubia, right? That's the point he's making.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I hadn't even thought about it until you pointed that out, because you're right. So I think Jabari interprets, because you do have a lot of people say, yeah, the Egyptians were white. You know what I'm saying, and obviously that's false. You know what I'm saying? But I think what Jabari is interpreting Bantu to say is they weren't black, and then he's kind of filling in the blank. Therefore, they were white. But that's not what Bantu said. He said they were brown. You know what I'm saying, so he's acknowledging that these are people of color. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I think that Jabari is inserting like the 2019 meaning of blackness into what what Bantu said, rather than hearing what he actually said. He's talking about literal shades, as opposed to the colloquial categories of black and white.
The color ideology that we subscribe to today. Right. That's not what they had back then. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't thought about that. That's a great point.
Also, right, there was some slick talk in the audience that the video doesn't capture, but me and you saw, right? Because when he brings up Frumentius and how Frumentius teaches King Azana, right? I mean, it happens, so I'm going to say it. So his elder makes a little snide comment about that particular relationship. Right. Yeah. Now the elder doesn't say what kind of situation it was, but he puts it in the air that there was something inappropriate about the relationship between Frumentius and Azana. Right. That's why, if you notice, Jabari kind of he's not denying it. He's kind of going with it. Now later on, it gets brought up in the debate. But I just want you guys to know, we in the audience, we peeped that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I wasn't really sure at what point that was. Yeah, shout out to I think that's Tim Allison in the building. He said meet him in the building. I think that's Tim Allison. You know what I'm saying? Men Tim 81. Shout out to him. But to your point, I think because there was that period where I guess maybe that was the point where he was trying to get the sound right or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And that was that is what it is. But You're right. I guess maybe we're leaving his name out just for the sake of respect. You know what I'm saying, but you're right. There was that elder, you know what I'm saying,
Right.
who shouted out at that point,
Right.
and has some concerns about that. And it comes up later. So I can't remember if it's later
Right.
in the rebuttal period or next round, but y'all will see it though. Y'all see it.
So basically, the way he's framing the whole Frumentius Izana situation is there was some sort of inappropriate relationship where he kind of whisked the young Izana away to convert him, right? And then once Izana becomes king, he becomes this blood warmonger who goes to town and decimates Nubia, right? This is what he's trying to portray, right? But let's see if history co-signs that, right? So let me share my screen.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Right. Let's go.
Yeah, because he made a statement. You know, did these nations was it like bloodless and costless? I think is what he says. Now, mind you, you know, again, you know, as you're kind of bringing that up, I see it right here. As you're bringing that up, I'm going to make a quick point. That he says that these Ethiopia and Nubia, these are the two nations that people always mention. And I'm not sure what people he's referring to. Actually, I haven't really heard a whole lot of people mention Christian Nubia for one. Ethiopia, yes, I do hear a lot of people mention that one. But nevertheless, you know, it's still not the case that even if it is the case that these are the two nations that people mention the most, that doesn't mean that they're the only nations, the only African nations that encountered Christianity. Or I'm talking about ancient times, right? So even if he were, and I don't think he can, but even if he were to establish that Ethiopia and Nubia, I'm saying, were somehow converted to Christianity in some negative means, you can't generalize that to the way in which all Africans, I'm saying, you know, encounter Christianity, because you still got to account for Tunisia, Mauritania, which we refer to as Morocco. You still got to deal with Carthage in North Africa, where you have Tertullian and Augustine coming out of there. You got all these different regions, you know what I'm saying? Ethiopia and Nubia just being two of them, or even Egypt, as a matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? How did Christianity come in there? I was just reading, and I say this, maybe I'll bring it up later because I don't have the source right in front of me, so I'm trying to stick to my sources. But, you know, I've got, I want to say it's Andrew Walls, who talks about how, given the fact that Hebrews had already been in North Africa for a couple of centuries, as you alluded to, by the time that this first century comes along and the Christian movement takes off, you know what I'm saying, you have these kinship networks, you know what I'm saying, in terms of Hebrews in Northern Africa, and saying having this kind of back and forth between Northern Africa and Jerusalem. That's why it can make sense that Jesus could escape to Egypt or something like that, you know, when Herod is doing his thing, because you got these kinship networks, right? And so as Christianity first starts in, you know, Hebrew communities, I'm saying, it's able to travel in these kinship networks and find its way into Egypt and so on and so forth. So, you know, you have Christianity getting in there without this, you know, bloodletting and all this other kind of stuff that Jabari wants to, you know, throw in there. But yeah, go rock it out, man. What you got, bro?
Right. So we got here it's from the Encyclopedia Britannica, Dictionary of Arts, Science, Literature, and General Information, 11th edition. It says here, according to the 4th century historian Tyrannus Rufinus, who cites Frumentius' brother Odysseus as his authority, as children, Frumentius and Odysseus accompanied their uncle Mauropius, I think that's how you say it, Mauropius, from the birthplace of Tyre, known in Lebanon, on a voyage to Ethiopia, when their ship stopped at one of the harbors of the Red Sea. Local people massacred the whole crew, sparing the two boys, who were taken as slaves to the king of Aksum. The two boys soon gained favor of the king, who raised them to positions of trust. Shortly before his death, the king freed them. The widowed queen, however, prevailed upon them to remain at the court and assist her in education of the young heir Izana and in the administration of the kingdom during the prince's minority. So they come in as children, right? The king and queen know these kids. The kids grow up. They know the kids. They grow to trust these kids as they become men. They know what these men believe in. They're very well acquainted with the worldview, right? So they're not shocked what he's going to show their son. There's no surprise. Here comes the conversion. They know what the worldview is. In fact, they trust him so much. Not only do they trust him with their child, she trusts them with the administration of the kingdom. They're helping her rule the land. And she's full aware of the worldview that these men have who are influential in her young son's life. And if we saw the other clip with Bantu, he shows that it wasn't a young boy. He was a young man. He wasn't a young boy. So all this,
Right.
inappropriate relationship is actually a bogus claim. Now, what about him being a warmonger, right? So he actually does become king, and he does go to war, right?
Go in, bro.
We have the inscription of Izana talking about this war. So here's the translation of the inscription, right? This is the primary, right? We love to talk about primary sources. Well, here you go. It says, in the faith of God and the power of the Father and Son and Holy Spirit, he sounds pretty orthodox so far, huh? Who saved for me the kingdom by the faith of his Son, Jesus Christ, who helped and always does help me, I, Izana, king of the Axumites and the Hamarites, and of the Raidan, and of the Sabaites and the Salil, and of the Hassa and the Bugiites, and of Teamo, a man of the tribe of Alim, son of El Amida, servant of Christ, give thanks to the Lord my God. I cannot state fully his favors because my mouth and my mind cannot embrace all the favors which he has given me, because he has given me strength and power and favored me with great name through his Son, in whom I believe, and he made me the God of all my kingdom because of my faith in Christ, by his will, the power of Christ, because he has guided me and I believe in him, and he has become my guide. I went out to make war on the Nubians because there had cried out against them the Maguto, the Hassa, the Atitai, the Borotai, saying that, quote, the Nubians have ground us down. Help us, because they have troubled us by killing. And I rose up in the power of the God Christ, in whom I believed, and he guided me. And I rose up from Aksum on the 8th day, a Saturday of the Aksumite month, Megabeef, whatever, in the faith of God, and I reached Marberia, and there I fed my army. So, yes, he goes to war. And yes, war is a very nuanced discussion that us Christians have to have, whether or not it's, righteous or not. Like that is an argument to have. But clearly, he's not out here with dreams of empire in his mind. Mm-hmm. There's a issue of people being killed by the Nubians, and he runs in here to defend these other people groups, these other Africans,
right?
And he's doing it in the faith of Christ, God Christ, right? So he believes that Christ is divinity. He believes in the triune God. This dude is super orthodox right here, right? Yeah. So he's not Conan the Barbarian. He's not Hitler, right? He's a man of the faith who wants to save people from their incoming death from an imposing force. That's who Izana is.
And see that.
So let me stop.
And see, that's the thing, man. I really need people to catch how big that is, right? Because his whole premise right here is that Christianity came into these areas through, bloodshed and cost of different sort. And so when it comes to Ethiopia, we see that's not the case, because we got Frumentius doing his thing. It's this, like you said, his relationship with a known individual. You know what I'm saying? And a conversion about as natural as it could be. I'm saying without bloodshed, nobody's killing anybody. And when he gets to Nubia, I'm saying when it comes to, whatever war went on, it was not due to anything that had to do with Christianity. I'm saying he wasn't going in there because I'm a Christian, I'm the king of Ethiopia, and I'm going to wreck shop on non-Ethiopian Nubia. I mean, actually non-Christian Nubia, rather. I'm saying that's not what he's doing. He's going to war because it was cats getting murked. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So Jabari places this false motivation on King Izana, you know what I'm saying, as if he's doing it for, Christendom. And that's simply not the case. So thus far, as we see, when it comes to conversion of Ethiopia and Nubia, you can't make a historical case that it was through bloodshed. You know what I'm saying? And you can't attribute this war to, Christianity. So that's just false right there.
Yep.
Clearly false.
Yep.
That's a dagger right there. If this was Sinetta, I would put a bomb sound on it. I would put an explosion like right there because that just kills the whole point.
Right.
It just kills the whole point. He cited 2 different nations, and thus far we see that neither one of them were converted through bloodshed or anything along those lines. You know what I'm saying, and the bloodshed that he does refer to does not follow from some sort of Christian motivation. So where are we at now?
Right.
You know, what's left of his argument? You know what I'm saying.
Gone.
So again, I really need people to catch this from a logical standpoint. Even if it was true that he had some Christian motivation, that Izana had Christian motivations, he would still have to meet the criteria. Jabari would still have to meet the criteria of associating that with Christianity itself. Right. But it's not even true anyway. So on both counts, logically and historically, that point is just shut down. It's done. You know what I'm saying? It's done. All right, you want to go back to the video?
Yeah, let's go back. Let's keep going.
Cool. Oh man,
that boy would then convert to Christianity and become the king of Ethiopia. His name is Izana. Please say Izana with me.
Share your screen, bro.
To study this.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well,
that probably would help, wouldn't it?
just a little.
Yeah, I'm just so excited, man. That's what it is, man. I'm hype off that joint. It's bars right now. You're just killing them. And notice, real quick, my man is giving you sources. You know what I'm saying, we're not just pulling this stuff out, just throwing it out willy-nilly. I'm just saying, we got some sources here.
That is, in fact, what Frumentius did. And that boy would then convert to Christianity.
I'll pull it back some.
Spiritual tradition is you. How comfortable would you be with that? Well, that is, in fact, what Frumentius did. And that boy would then convert to Christianity and become the king of Ethiopia. His name is Izana. Please say Izana with me. You have to study this. Izana then goes, here are the coins, he goes and prevents Ethiopians from erecting their stelae, which is something they did according to their traditions, that seem to be quite close to the Kemetic Nubian traditions, by the way. And then he does something very interesting. Our dear brother, Dr. Bantu, gives you Ethiopian Nubia, right? But what he's not telling you is that this converted Ethiopian king then goes to Nubia and destroys its cities, kills its priests. That's how Nubia falls. This transition to Christianity was not bloodless. They didn't just say, hey, Christianity works, let's do it. Here's an image that was recently drawn of Taharka, supposed to be one of the last kings of Nubia, a proud African. Well, those things that he wrought were destroyed by Izana. Both Ethiopia and Nubia fell because of what took place, the work of a Greek Syrian man. That's what happens. He becomes the bishop of Ethiopia. Let's move quickly. There's no way I'm going to get through all of this.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to stop right there right quick because now I don't know. I have no idea what he means when he says that Nubia and Ethiopia fell. You know what I'm saying? What is that? I don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying?
That's not conducive to someone who actually does want to take over someone else's empire, because that's more work for you, isn't it? I decimate everything, I flatten everything out, and now I got to use my manpower to build the very thing I've just captured. Yeah, it doesn't sound too smart.
No, it doesn't sound smart at all. I mean, it's a poor use of resources. But aside from, these countries still exist. Ethiopia obviously still exists. I mean, it wasn't destroyed. So I don't know what he means by fell. And in the sense that, so let's say even if his narrative is true, let's just say that King Izana converts and then he goes wreck shop on Nubia. Let's say that were the case. You know what I'm saying? For Christian reasons, he did these things. In what way did Ethiopia fall though? What does that even mean? You know what I'm saying? They're the ones wrecking shop. So how did they fall? Number one. Number two, matter of fact, let me bring this up. Let me share this right here. Again, it kind of helped to be bootleg too. I just happened to put my notes on a PowerPoint that I had some other stuff that'll kind of help us here. Let me go back to over a second. This right here. I hope I'm not scrolling all the way through here for no reason. Or else I'm gonna look like real stupid.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's gonna be really bad. It's gonna be really bad.
So good.
Oh no, here it is. Cool. This is a King Silco engraving right here.
Ah, King Silco, nice.
Now, my understanding, you know what I'm saying, and I actually got a book. Oh man, I don't know if it's
Salim Fabergé, right?
Yeah, Salim Faraji. Yep. You know what I'm saying? He's got a
yeah.
book on how Christianity spread to Nubia. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I don't see it right there. Oh, wait, you know what? I do. Hold for 1 second.
All right. So like, share, and subscribe. Definitely, you know, put this link out. Tell a friend to tell a friend. That's them again. You know what I mean? There he is. The man, the myth, Adam Coleman has returned.
Yeah, so this right here, if y'all can see it. All right, this is, let me see. Okay, there we go. I think it's in the middle there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the roots of Nubian Christianity uncovered, the triumph of the last pharaoh. You know what I'm saying? And this is Salim Faraji. He's actually the guy that I've seen on Sinetta before.
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah.
A couple of times. You know what I mean? And he talks about how Christianity spread to, during the reign of King Silko. This is a poor image right here, but this is actually an image of King Silko during after his conversion to Christianity. You know what I'm saying? Now, my point is this, you know what I'm saying, is that Christianity, comes into Nubia. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up this quote. Let me see if I oh yeah, here we go. I didn't have it on my PowerPoint, but I found it actually. Now I'm gonna post this. I think I can post it. I'll post it in the description, or I'll figure some kind of way out to post it. Anyway, this is from a book titled "The Spreading of Christianity in Nubia" by K. Miklowski. I can't pronounce it. I'll put it in the description. You know what I'm saying, for the sake of citation. All right, this is on page 329, 330. Again, this is "The Spreading of Christianity in Nubia" by Miklowski. All right. Now, let me just kind of read this right quick. He says, many factors explain this early Christianization of the Qadis. That's talking about Nubia. But the Roman Empire still hostile to Christianity in the 3rd century, and the Christian Empire in the 6th centuries persecuted those who did not obey the official injunctions with regard to religion. Hence, many Egyptians, perhaps, and also Nubians fleeing from Egypt, may have brought their faith to the dwelling south of Aswan. Talking about in Nubia. Traders through Aswan on their these Byzantine diplomacy too played anything but a minor role in the 5th and 6th centuries. Byzantium being anxious to remain on good terms with Aksum in the face of the Persian threat in the Red Sea. This is what I was trying to get to. Okay, I messed up my own notes, so I'm just going to kind of just belay that point. But the point I'm trying to make, so I'm trying to get there, is that there was a number of different ways that Christianity came into Nubia. I mean, it wasn't through bloodshed. You have, as is described in this book here with Faraji, you have trade routes. I'm saying people kind of going in and out of Nubia, bringing Christianity with them. You have people fleeing from Egypt, going in and out, bringing Christianity with them. And nevertheless, Nubia remains around to like the 13th century. You know what I'm saying? We actually have documentation. As a matter of fact, there's I'll give y'all some homework. You can look up a Muslim historian from like the 9th century. His name is al-Baladuri. You know what I'm saying? And he documents what's called the First Battle of Dongola. The First Battle of Dongola, right? Now, this is happening in 652 AD. You know what I'm saying? Between Muslim Egyptians at this point and Nubians. You know what I'm saying? He talks about, this is a quote from al-Baladuri.
The Nubian archers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He says, one day they came out against us and formed a line. We wanted to use swords, but we were not able to. And they shot at us and put out the eyes to the number of 150. End quote. That's al-Baladuri. I'm saying he's writing in like the 8th or 9th century, but he's referring to a battle that occurred in like 652 AD. So my thing is, if your boy Jabari is talking about Nubia fell, that Nubia fell because of King Azana, which would have been like 3 centuries before. How is Nubia still around with standing up against the Muslims in 652 AD, 3 centuries later? You see what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, as a result of of them standing strong against the Muslim invasion, you know what I'm saying, actually Nubians were the only, from my understanding, and people can fact check me on this, they were the only of those northern or kind of northern African countries who actually end up making a pact You know what I'm saying, with the Arabs. You know what I'm saying? There would be no war, and they would just kind of, you know, carry on. And it really isn't until I want to say like 1276 AD, somewhere around there, that, you know, eventually the Muslims overrun Nubia, and that's when you could say, you know, Nubia fell.
Right.
But again, that's like 900 years after, you know, the period that Jabari is talking about. So my question is, when he just throws that word around, like, you know, Nubia fell, what is he talking about? What is he referring to? Because it's still around for like another 900 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know where he's going with that, but, you know, that's kind of what wanted to throw that out. I'll bring those sources next session. Y'all can hold me to that.
All right, cool.
All right, cool. All right, let me stop sharing that. So we're going to go back to the video, right?
Yep.
All right. Share screen. I still got to get the mechanics. Every time I share a screen, I've got to think it through, like, every time. All right, here we go.
American man, right? Well, if we don't understand history correctly, this will actually seem like it makes sense. We know that groups of people move. You would never think to see Donald Trump as a Native American, but
Stop it for a minute.
That.
Yeah.
Right. This kind of goes against what he said earlier about when he tried to play Bantu's video, the gotcha video, and he said they're not black. He just said people move, right? People migrate, right? So it's not the same people throughout the centuries, right?
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, continue. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, keep going.
To his credit, to Jabari's credit, the Donald Trump Native American picture was pretty funny, though.
Yeah, but it wasn't a very compelling metaphor, but yeah.
It wasn't a great argument, but I just thought it looked funny.
Yeah.
It was comical.
When Dr. Bantu says that the Egyptians aren't black, that's what he's doing. Really quickly, he's focusing on this period. This is the 3rd and 4th century CE of the Common Era, instead of focusing on the 3 millennia that preceded it.
Pause.
3,000 years.
Yep.
What era are we talking about? If we're talking about Christianity is the quote unquote white man's religion, we got to talk about the era in which Christianity is in, correct?
Yeah.
So how are we going back to pre-dynastic times if we're talking about what happened in the first 4 centuries? We're supposed to be in this era. What, you know what I mean? I didn't even think about that until you just said it. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so like one thing I would do is say, like sometimes it helps to like make somebody else's argument stronger. You know what I'm saying, as you're trying to shoot it down. Like you want to give them the best argument you can.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then you can kind of, you know, show how it still fails. And so like in this case, if I was Jabari, what I would argue, and maybe this is what he was trying to do, I would argue that, you know, maybe Bantu claiming that the Egyptians weren't black is like a symptom of the whitening of the black mind, I guess you could say, of black Christians. Like, you know, we inherit from Christianity this tendency to whitewash everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I was him, that's how I would. Right. Yeah. So that's going to strengthen the argument. Now, nevertheless, even if that was the case, even if that is true, Bantu's psychology, you know what I'm saying, like my personal psychology, you know what I'm saying, is not in some way a direct reflection of Christianity itself. It could be. I could be a straight up Uncle Tom. I could be Uncle Ruckus with a cross around my neck. I could be. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I could do that all day. But that's not necessarily saying anything about Christianity. Like my personal psychology, you know what I'm saying, is not, doesn't say anything about the teachings of Jesus, right? You know what I'm saying? Because in the scriptures we see an affirmation, like Paul says, and he said, I would rather be accursed than to see my brethren in the flesh, you know what I'm saying, without Christ. I'm saying, so he's still taking, you know, he still expresses this affinity, you know what I'm saying, for his countrymen, if you will. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, just because, you know, even if it were the case that somehow Bantu is just, you know, shucking and jiving or whatever, I guess that's what he's trying to imply. That in and of itself doesn't say much about, you know, Christianity itself. You haven't tied that back to the teachings of Christianity. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh yeah. So he still hasn't met those criteria there, but it's good.
Nope.
You can't say that the Egyptians aren't black after the Persians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, the Romans, and then in there someplace the Arab invasion of 637 CE, and then say they're not black. If you do that, and I want to say you're doing this unintentionally, you're doing the service of our oppressors. These are the images you should see. Here is King.
Yeah, see what he said there? I think that's what he was trying to, he said, you're doing the service of our oppressors.
Right.
I think that's what he was trying to get to, is like, we've been whitewashed and now we're, whitewashing ourselves. I'm saying, but again, even let's say that was the case. Let's say that the oppressors, use Christianity to whitewash us, whatever. Again, now that falls under the second category. I'm saying that you've got to make it. Can you account for the distinction between how something is used versus Christianity itself? How Christianity
is that an example of being like Messiah?
Right.
Is that an example that you're trying to show?
Right.
So
now, forgive me if, correct me if I'm wrong. I can't find a scripture where Jesus says anything about trying to convert people to being white.
Yeah, I haven't found that yet.
I haven't found it.
Oh, that it's in Second Opinions chapter. No.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There we go.
Narmer, the founder of Kemet. You can find a documentary on Kemet every day of the week, but you will never see an image of the man that put it together. His nose is wider than anyone in this room. His lips are thicker than anyone in this room. This is the man that puts Kemet together. And then it falls apart. And then this man brings it back together. And then it falls apart. And this man, and then this man. These are Africans. If you just focus on the Coptic period, that's like you saying that Donald Trump is a Cherokee. That's the problem we have here. And I also need for you to see this man as my time is running out. This man wrote the world's oldest complete book. His name is Ptahhotep. Say Ptahhotep with me. Ptahhotep. These are the Africans that are being hidden. And finally, very quickly, I want you to understand that Christianity in those regions, which was forced upon those people, then seeks to destroy the ancient African traditions. Take a look at this temple, which was named Philae. Say Philae with me. Philae. Or Pilak. Say Pilak with me. Pilak. It is here where we see Constantine do his dangerous work, saying that if you actually practice the pagan traditions, you will do so under the pain of death. This temple is then closed. And we see the last inscription in the ancient African language. And then we see something curious, desecration of this temple. Do you see that? With a Coptic cross.
All right, stop it.
And we actually see that these...
All right.
So now he's talking about the Christians desecrating the sacred spaces of ancient Kemet, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So keep that in mind while I share my screen. Right? Let's see if this is unique to Christianity.
There you go.
All right, let me just present this. Okay. All right. Iconoclasm on a grand scale was primarily political in motive, Bleiberg writes in his exhibition catalog for Striking Power. The facing statues aided ambitious rulers and would-be rulers with rewriting history to their advantage. Over the centuries, this erasure often occurred along gendered lines. The legacies of two powerful Egyptian queens whose authority and mystique fueled the cultural imagination, Hatshepsut and Nefertiti, were largely erased from visual culture. This is from Edward Bleiberg, is an American archaeologist. I always mess up that word. An Egyptologist. He graduated from Harvard College, did graduate studies at Yale University, Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and finally received an MA and PhD from the University of Toronto. This guy is a scholar. But look, what else he says. The ancient Egyptians, it's important to note, ascribed important powers to images of the human form. They believed that the essence of a deity could inhabit an image of that deity, or in the case of mere mortals, part of that deceased human being's soul could inhabit a statue inscribed for that particular person. These campaigns of vandalism were therefore intended to deactivate an image's strength, as Bleiberg puts it. So, is this unique to the Egypt? And it's funny, right? Because Bantu talks about how the Bizrat, right, the gospel,
Yeah.
sometimes enhances certain cultural norms, or certain cultural norms are taken away depending on how it coincides with the gospel, right?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
here we have an example of them holding up a ancient Kemetic tradition.
That's true.
This
Facts.
is an ancient Kemetic tradition. When a god and or king fell out of favor, there was a contingent of Kemetic people that went about their business of literally erasing the legacy of that king / god.
Do you want me to play that video clip that you sent me earlier?
Yes.
All right. Here we
Yes.
go.
Now's the time.
Let's go to the videotape. Let's see, we're at 1734. Give me a second here. Coming with the tapes, dog.
Got to.
This is just a snippet. And I'll post some other resources from this gentleman here, these folks here, in the description once this video is done. Once we're done here, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right.
Ancient Egyptians understood images to be hosts of spiritual energies, supernatural forces. So the images could host the soul of a deceased person or a god. And they had the ability, once this spiritual energy inhabited the object, to breathe, see, hear, walk, and enforce actual real changes in the terrestrial realm. This exhibition is titled Striking Power, Iconoclasm in Ancient Egypt, and it brings together 40 statues and reliefs from the Brooklyn Museum collection and one other collection here at the Pulitzer. They're shown together, and this is the first exhibition dedicated to the idea of iconoclasm in ancient Egypt.
Iconoclasm is purposely damaging a work of art. But in ancient Egypt, the iconoclasm deals with disempowering spiritual beings that are believed to inhabit works of art. So the most common question that I'm asked as curator of Egyptian art in Brooklyn is, why are the noses broken? And when I first was asked this question, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I spent 8 years in graduate school trying to think about what the statues looked like with their noses. I never really thought about why the noses were missing. But because this was such a common question, it seemed to me that it was important to come up with a reasonable answer. And that was really the birth of this exhibition.
Scholars are able to determine the purposeful damage of many objects by looking at patterns that exist across a large number of objects. So there are particular places that are targeted frequently in both three-dimensional and two-dimensional objects, which leads us to believe that the damage is not just a result of accidental damage, but was intentional.
The damage to statues was to disempower the statues, or to even to kill the spirit inside. So the nose was a very important part of this process, because the Egyptians believed that the breath of life came through the nose. So removing the nose kills the spiritual being inside. Damage to the feet is also very common, because many of the offering rituals require the being inside the statue to step forward as they're making an offering. So by eliminating the feet, it makes it impossible for the statue to perform its original function.
The other body parts, like the eyes and the ears, which would have allowed a statue or the spirit within it to listen and to see, as well as parts of the statues and reliefs that demonstrate royal legitimacy, have been removed.
Tomb robbers did damage statues to prevent the tomb owner from taking revenge on them for damaging their tomb. There were purposeful campaigns of forgetting previous monarchs, so their statues would also be damaged. But also the statues that are found in ancient Egyptian polytheistic temples were also the target of early Christians who were trying to eliminate ancient Egyptian polytheism.
It's a really exciting opportunity to explore these ideas, delve into the history of these works in a way that has not been investigated.
So Christians weren't doing anything out of step with what they don't They done as Egyptian. I mean, it was out of step with the Egyptian tradition.
They were very much in step because, again, Jesus, right, to these Kemetic people, well, he's the new God, but he's also the new king.
Hey, Fredo, let me stop you there right quick.
Yes, sir.
Hey, go ahead, rock out right quick. My son is like crying in the background. I'm gonna lay him down right quick. Keep going though.
Okay. Right? He's a new king. He's also a high priest, according to the scriptures. So if you're pledging allegiance to the new God / new king / high priest, well, then these other guys gotta go. And what do we do in ancient Kemet when other monarchs and gods have to go? We destroy them because we want to make sure that they are deactivated because we've made Jesus Lord, not Ra and not these other, the pantheon that we see throughout the centuries in Kemet. So they were doing what came naturally. So if you're going to have issues with Christians doing that in Egypt during, the CE era, you got to keep that same energy when they did that to your queens, right? And it also destroys a popular myth that it was Napoleon that shot the noses off all these idols. No, it was the Kemetic people themselves. They were deactivating the powers that these statues that they believe had. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. They held on. This is an ancient Kemetic tradition that the Christians actually held on to. This tradition was not destroyed. They held on and they carried it, right? So, yeah. So we're gonna wait for Mr. Adam to come through. Listen, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. Can we have a citation for what? I just showed you. Well, let's go back. I'll show you to you again. All right, let me show you again.
Oh man, my bad, y'all.
Yeah, hold on for a minute. People want to see this thing again. Hold on.
With that?
Yeah, this is the citation. This is the quote. Right. This is from Edward Blyberg, an American archaeologist. I always mess up that word. An Egyptologist. Right. This is a quote from a scholar who had an exhibition in my neck of the woods, Brooklyn, at the Brooklyn Museum. And the statue that you see here is actually the Queen Hatshepsut wearing the Kahat headdress. Right? This is courtesy of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Notice how the body is intact, but the face is completely ripped off because they believe that the statue would breathe in the spirit of the queen from the nostrils. So if you remove the nostrils, that spirit can no longer exist in the statue. Therefore, you get rid of the queen, right? So this is the source. This is the scholar from Haverford College, graduate studies at Yale University and the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The man has an MA and a PhD from the University of Toronto. That is the source. He is a scholar. And he was the guy speaking as well in the video that we shared as well.
Right. Yep. All right, man. I think we're coming to the end of Jabari's first joint, man. It's well, I'll say my comment.
Actually, I got a couple more joints. There's a few things he's going to say that I like to comment on. There's one big dagger I got.
Hey, dagger away. I'll play the clip and then just you tell me.
Yeah, I got you.
Something curious. Desecration of this temple. Do you see that? With a Coptic cross. And we actually see that these places were defiled. Can you see how Ast is carved out here, chiseled out? This is what those Christians, look at how they destroyed her face. Family, that is the tradition that we have been placed in.
It's your tradition.
I wish I had a whole hour about this.
Right.
We'll come back on the rebuttal. But I want you to understand that there's a story that you ain't been told. I'm going to leave you with this image here. This is a great temple called the Temple of Luxor. Beautiful temple. Ipet Resiet. And in that temple, you'll actually see that the Christians that made it their church plastered over and painted images of themselves. And in this instance, our dear brother, Dr. Bantu, is correct. Those ain't Africans. Those are the Tamil, the Europeans that inhabited that space and defined their ancient traditions.
Okay.
Time.
That was it right there anyway.
All right, so he's talking about in the Temple of Luxor that there was these frescoes that were painted to cover, some of the walls within the Temple of Luxor, and you can't really see what the slide was because they show it in the video, but it's these white individuals. It's a fresco, it's a painting of these white individuals, and they're looking up towards something. And the claim that Jabari is making is that these were Christians, right? These were white Christians that came into the Temple of Luxor and covered up the temple with their own paintings. And it was basically the church, right? That the church did that. Well, let's see if that is the case. So I'm going to share my screen.
All right. Let's get it.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, I see it. Boom.
All right, cool. All right. So let me just make it big.
I'm getting a little bit quicker with the sharing screen thing, man. I'm getting there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's a process.
It's a process.
So, all right. So, okay. And I will share this source. This is from an actual paper, right? So within the Great Temple of Amun at Luxor, a building of the time of Amenemhotep III, one of the central rooms of the inner temple was remodeled during the Roman period and decorated with frescoes. Unfortunately, this fresco decoration, already severely damaged through the collapse of the roof and subsequent exposure to the weather, was almost completely destroyed by the Egyptologists toward the end of the 19th century, when they took down most of the remaining plaster to reveal the underlying Egyptian reliefs. Up until 1953, most scholars like Ebers, Julian, and von Bissing thought that the room had served as a Christian church and that the frescoes were representations of Christian saints. Only P. Lacau had cautiously suggested otherwise. Then, in an article published in Archaeologia, U. Monteret de Villard reconsidered this room and proposed a new interpretation of its function. Basing his study on Lacau's discussion of the Latin inscriptions found in the temple area of Luxor and on a series of newly discovered watercolors by the 19th century scholar J.G. Wilkinson, Monteret de Villard showed that the alterations have been made not in the 5th or 6th century, but in Roman times, and suggested that the hall itself had been a temple of the imperial cult. At the end of this article, the hall itself has been a temple of the... At the end of this article, he emphasizes once again the importance of these watercolors and the intention of this article. Quote, "The primary purpose of this article has been to bring Wilkinson's watercolors to the notice of students, to banish once and for all the legend of the church within the temple at Luxor by showing the transformed hall's true date and purpose. What that present study sets as its task is to complete the work that Monteret de Villard began, to interpret the frescoes on the walls and in the niche, which will lead in turn to a reconsideration of the function in the room." So this is the slide. There's the picture that Jabari would show you. And these are the watercolors that the individual made. Now, let me read the quote here. "The frescoes, the Wilkinson watercolors, the walls of the chamber, which had been decorated with low reliefs in the Pharaonic period, were covered some centuries later with 2 layers of plaster. The first layer was coarser and thicker to cover the reliefs, the second thinner and finer in order to carry the paintings. In the latter part of the 19th century and first half of the 20th, it was generally assumed that the set of figures in the niche represented Christian saints, and that accordingly, the destroyed frescoes have been part of an early Christian or Coptic church." In print, only Lacau expressed skepticism, pointing out that the figures were far more like emperors than saints. One scholar, however, the Egyptologist J.G. Wilkinson, who had visited Luxor toward the middle of the 19th century before the frescoes on the walls had been taken down, recognized that date as Roman. He habitually drew views of the sites he visited while traveling in the Near East, and in one of his unpublished sketchbooks, now MS Roman number, whatever, in the Griff Institute at Oxford, Monteret de Villard discovered 9 watercolors of what Wilkin identified as a Roman hall. The watercolors cover pages 51 to 62 of the Oxford manuscript, The Imperial Chamber at Luxor, authors Lowly Kalavasov, Mixiana, Source, Dumbarton Oak Papers, Volume 29, 1975, pages 225 to 251, published by Dumbarton Oaks, trustees of Harvard University. And you can find this, the URL is right here for jstor.org. So as you see here, this is the fresco that we see today. This was a watercolor painting of the fresco that was more fully formed before the Egyptologists broke down the fresco. So as you see, these guys are wearing the emperor's robes. It was an imperial coat. And they're all looking at this gentleman who doesn't look Semitic at all.
No.
At all. Look at the footwear. Look at the toga. This is not what an ancient Semitic brown-skinned Palestinian in the beginning centuries would wear. Now, I don't blame Jabari in believing this, because most people believed it.
Right.
You know, most people believed it. So I'm not even going to put it on Jabari. You know,
it's mistaken. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's a mistake. But it wasn't Christians that put the plaster up.
It is.
Just wasn't.
It
was an imperial cult. It had nothing to do with Christians. And he's right. They weren't Christians and they were white. He was right about that.
So there we go. You know, so I mean, so now that was the end of his talk. That was the end of his first round, and they get into it'll be Bantu's first round is coming up, and then you have the rebuttal periods, which we'll explore that in, like, I guess, our next session. But I guess we can go ahead and close it out here, bro. I mean, you want to have some? I want to sum up some things, but you want to give it a shot first. And then,
I got more darts, but it is getting late. I got more slides.
Oh, for real?
But, yeah.
How much you got?
Jabari comes back. He comes back. I mean, I got 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you mean like for his rebuttal?
Yeah, but we could do another video for that. That's
Because
it is late.
Yeah. Because what I'm gonna do is I want to go kind of in order. You know what I'm saying? I want to show the Bantu respond to that, and then we'll do the rebuttal. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so you want to come back to Jabari's rebuttal?
Yeah. I'm gonna just follow the order of the debate. You know what I mean?
That's what's up.
We do our play-by-play. So I know you got them daggers ready, bro. Like
I'm hot now. I'm ready.
Calm down, man.
I'm ready. You know, it's like once you start spinning the bars, you start getting into the track. You find your pocket. You know what I mean? I'm in my pocket right now. I'm in my bag. I'm in my bag right now. I'm in my bag.
Like Gambit with the cards. You just throwing them, boy.
Beatrice is like, show them. Nah, not yet. Soon, though. Soon. What up, vocab?
Cab in the lab. You know. Oh, you know what? A couple quick points I want to make, and then I'm gonna hand it off to you, and then I'm gonna finish out. But something I wanted to say earlier. So I know my audience. Okay, I know that we played a couple white folks, and my super woke people are gonna be like, "Oh, man, y'all got white scholars." I'm saying I want to say something about that right quick. First of all, with respect to Catherine Gerber, Jabari quoted her first. I had a scholar, I'm saying Catherine Gerber, I'm saying it's the same person he quoted. I just played a video that contradicted what he said she'd be saying. So that's number one. Number two, with respect to Blyberg, really at the end of the day, evidence doesn't have a color. I'm not concerned about color. I'm concerned about argumentation. If you can disprove his scholarship, then go for it. I'm saying, but other than that, I'm not really too concerned about, what color somebody is. The question is the information, I'm saying, is it reasonable? Is a reason for us to affirm it or disaffirm what that person claims. That's what that is. And then two, I want to give a shout out to a couple folks. We talked earlier about slave narratives and how when you get into slave narratives, you find over and over again African enslaved persons attesting to being oppressed for adhering to Christianity and for practicing Christianity. They were beat down and really suffered for the gospel. You know what I'm saying? And I want to give a shout out to Nephroniti. If y'all haven't subscribed to her channel, please subscribe to her channel, because I know she's engaging in a project where she's constantly looking for these quotations. I just got 2 of them that I quoted today. There's others, and she's got far more than I do. You know what I'm saying? I'll be checking her out on Facebook. She'll post up like a quotation and then the source and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like, that's really her thing. That's her project. So if you want to learn more about slave narratives that attest to African enslaved persons being beaten down for practicing Christianity, definitely check out Nephroniti on Facebook. And also she's got a YouTube channel as well. I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but I'll try to put it in the description. Shout out to Matt Jackson, vocab, everybody that was on the research team, my man Mike Pereira, G-Con.
Faithful to God, what up?
Faithful to God. Yeah. MJ Jackson. Brother Beran was on the research squad who just totally just getting
he's
busy
nuclear.
out there.
He's nuclear right now, bro.
Yeah, he's killing on Silent right now. Shout out to Pastor Bennett. You know what I'm saying? I spoke to him like yesterday or the day before. He's saying real cool, brother. Shout out to him. He's been doing major damage, you know what I'm saying, out there in the conscious community, you know what I'm saying, in a good way. You know what I'm saying, bringing the truth, man, destroying falsehoods. He's doing damage in that way. So anyway, I want to say I'm gonna summarize a couple things, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you kick it off, and then I'm gonna say my last little bit.
Yeah, I said this before in our preview, and I'll say it again. You know, the debates that we're having on this particular platform will be academic, but they will not be collegiate. Meaning that, you know, in collegiate debates, the subject matter is secondary. It's all about showcasing your rhetorical prowess, you know, and your ability to make compelling arguments. It's more than that for us, right? It's really about the subject matter, which is the gospel, right? It's about Jesus. And whoever we debate on this particular platform has to have some skin in the game, right? They have to have something that they have to defend. It's not just offense, it's defense. You know, if you're not willing to defend your worldview in our public square, then you really shouldn't be on stage with any of us, right? And that's just what it is. You got to have something. You got to stand for something. Jabari stands for what he believes. He's out there doing what he believes is right. You know, he stands on his square. Yeah. You just look at him and you know what he's representing. Say what you want about him. He's about that Kemet life, like for real.
About it, yeah, without question.
He's about it. So salute to him. Mm-hmm. Even though I disagree with his worldview, as a man, I can respect another man who stands on his square. So I have to salute him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. And I want to echo that, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm the same way. You know, I'm putting this video right here. I'm willing to take whatever smoke that comes. I mean, that's just what it is. That's the nature of public, you know, engaging in the public. That's cool. You know what I'm saying? And I respect, you know, Jabari, you know, he stands on this square. He goes hard for his. You know what I'm saying? I disagree with him. And, you know, I'm praying for the brother. I really am. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, definitely, you know, he got up there and he, you know, threw blows, man, threw some shots. You know what I mean? You got to respect that. You got to respect that, man. So, you know, and nothing that we do here, you know what I'm saying, is in any way meant to be an attack or disrespectful, you know, toward him or anybody else.
Absolutely.
So clarify that.
We got love for Jabari over here.
You got love for that. With that said, I got to get him. As I'm ending out, I want to share my screen one last time as we kind of just review very briefly. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to go back to, again, I'm interested in argumentation. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm about. Okay, if you're going to convince me of your position, you got to give me more than emotion. You know what I'm saying? Right. You got to give me more than appeals to emotion and, oh, man, you know, because what happens is we all have this shared history that we grapple with. I'm saying, and somebody pulling your heartstrings, I'm saying, tapping into that shared history to pull on your heartstrings, that shouldn't be enough to persuade you to just abandon any worldview, quite frankly. You know what I'm saying? You ought to do it based upon reason. You know what I'm saying? You ought to have good reason for, you know, the worldview that you uphold or disaffirm. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, reject. You know what I mean? So with that being said, let me go back to argument structure. And I want to say, you know, this is what I was assessing. Where am I at here? Oh, here we go. Right. So this is what I was assessing, you know, Jabari on, and actually both sides. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for argumentation. The question was, is Christianity the white man's religion? Can y'all see that? Am I sharing right now?
Yeah, you're sharing. I can see it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So the question was, is Christianity the white man's religion? That's the question. And, you know, for Jabari, he's trying to say that Christianity is the white man's religion. And so what I'm looking for him to do is fill in the blank, give me some premises, right? He needs to give me some argumentation and evidence that brings me to the conclusion, you know, so, you know, whatever he's bringing to the table should be X, Y, Z. Therefore, Christianity is the white man's religion. That's what I'm looking for him to do. Right. Now, I set up two criteria in order for him to make that case, which was, you know, we talked about Frederick Douglass and, you know, the law of identity. You know what I'm saying? I talked about how, you know, Frederick Douglass makes this distinction. between Christianity itself and these other attributes that are not a part of Christianity itself. And he was able to make that distinction. I'm saying if you can't tie the allegations that you're making against Christianity to Christianity itself in terms of its teachings and precepts, then you haven't made your case. I also talked about making the i.e. Marcus Garvey. I'm saying between how something is used or misused and the thing itself. So just because somebody used Christianity or misused Christianity doesn't mean that it's not so much about Christianity itself. It says more about the evil individual. Did Jabari meet those two criteria? Well, he brought up the transatlantic slave trade and abuse. Also, I talked about the distinction between Christianity and church. Was that a lob at the church or Christianity? He's lob. That's the church. It's church folks doing that. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't meet the two criteria there. He didn't tie transatlantic slave trade and abuse, to Christianity itself, or account for that other distinction, i.e. Marcus Garvey. Same thing with Ethiopian Frumentius. He didn't tie that back to Christianity itself. Nubia, you know what I'm saying, and the supposed bloodshed, I'll get back to that in a second. He didn't tie that back to the teachings of Christianity itself, nor did he account for that distinction between usage and what something actually is. Whitewashing, I think that was a misinterpretation of Bantu. We talked about that, where Bantu used the term black in reference to actual shades and skin colors, as opposed to the more, kind of slang or racial categories that we employ today. But let's just say that he's making a case for black people in the church engaging in whitewashing. He hasn't tied that back to Christianity. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing with the word is iconoclasm. Mm-hmm. I'm saying the destruction of the temples and Egyptian items and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? The Luxor temple and so forth, Philae and all that. I'm saying he didn't tie that back to Christians' actual teaching. None of those things necessarily follow from Christianity itself. I'm saying, and again, he didn't account for that other distinction. And aside from that, we also see that according to the primary sources that Alfredo brings to the table, BK apologists, the whole Frumentius angle in terms of there being something weird about that's a false historical narrative. The bloodshed with Nubia, you know what I'm saying, and that being somehow related to Christianity, according to Jabari, that's a historically false narrative. Whitewashing, that's a misrepresentation of Bantu, and the iconoclasm of making something that's like exclusively Christian. You know what I'm saying? That's a historically false narrative, because you have Egyptians themselves engaging in that far before the church. And so if anything, the early Egyptian Christians were in keeping with the Kemetic tradition of destroying those things. That's what you did. So then, with all that being said, we can say that Jabari did not meet the two criteria. You know what I'm saying? From a logical standpoint, he didn't meet the mark for what he needed to prove his case. And secondly, and I say this with all due respect, as far as I can tell, at least most of these are just flat out falsehoods. It's just a flat out lie. You know what I'm saying? Well, I won't use the word lie. It's incorrect to say that Nubia fell and was, overrun by King Azana based upon some Christian motivation or something along those lines. That's just completely incorrect. Likewise, Ethiopia, you don't see, he asked the question, did these nations convert in a bloodless manner? And obviously, in terms of Ethiopia and Nubia, we see that they did. So, yeah, he didn't make his case. Nothing personal. I'm just saying that based upon argumentation, if you look at argumentation structure, you know what I mean, and what he needed to do, he didn't get the job done. So with that said, I think we can wrap this round up, at least the Jabari section of it. We're going to come back for Bantus. We'll keep y'all posted on that. But BK apologists, the next where we at here? Yeah, so the next show that we're going to do where we tag team and go point for point is going to be on your channel. So make sure you give people your channel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I put my link in the chat. So just please like, share, and subscribe, because part 2 will be on my channel with the incomparable, the indelible Adam Coleman. It will be there as well. So
right. Cool. I guess maybe I should put any other contact information you want to put in the chat, or
well, I sell them t-shirts now. I put that in the chat as well. I put that in there too. So check me out, T Public. Okay. BK Apologists, got them Urban Apologist t-shirts, so you get that righteous drip. You know what I mean? We got them hoodies, we got them tote bags. Right. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
Bro, I don't know how you do it, man. Like something will happen today, and then like that day, like you've already got a t-shirt for it. Like no lie. You know what I'm saying? By the time I got back to the crib, from the debate, you already had a Bisrot shirt on. I'm like, yo, this dude is like, how, bro? Like, how? You know what I'm saying? But that's that New York hustle right there, man. But you know, but you know, shout out to everybody who rocked out with us, man. This is definitely the longest, probably anything I've done. You know what I'm saying? But I loved it though, man. This is dope. This is my first real live out here. You know what I'm saying?
It's
so
fun.
I thought it went really well. Got the kinks out. You know, had a good time.
Yeah.
Y'all definitely, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, True ID Podcast. Subscribe to that as well. I will be posting this as a podcast also. But yeah, subscribe to the True ID Podcast at truidpodcast.com. Also, we're available on iTunes. Check me out at True ID. It's TRUID. Apologetics.com. That's like my blog site. About to do some stuff over there. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on TikTok too. So I got like, you know, one video up there, but you know, I'm holding strong with that one. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. There you go.
And if you feel so inclined, hit me up on Patreon, man. Patreon.com/Adam Coleman. I mean, for anybody who's been following me for a while, you know, I've been putting out more videos. I'm doing lives now. You know what I'm saying? Before I was working 2 jobs, man. Quite frankly, I got a family to feed. So, you know, I was working 2 jobs and I just wasn't able to do this stuff. But for right now, I've been fortunate to be in a position where I don't have to work 2 jobs, and I'm trying to keep it that way, you know, no lie. So, you know, definitely if you're so inclined, you know, I'm about to start my nonprofit joint within the next week or so.
Nice.
I just submitted the paperwork yesterday. Excuse me, earlier today. Well, yeah, because it is yesterday now. And it should be back within 7 to 10 business days. And so I'll be incorporated as True ID Apologetics Ministries. So, you know, please consider, you know, helping us out because we want to do more of this stuff, man. The fact of the matter is, you know, we're all about getting out here, giving an answer. And, you know, it's sorely needed out here. So I love y'all, man. And never forget, love God, love people, and take care of the things that God blesses you with. Love y'all.
Peace.
Peace.